I hear noise in the background. I hear noise in the background. We live?
Yes, sir.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. Happy Monday to everyone. Mike D right here. We got Servon in the building as well, man. We got a couple of things that we're going to address on today's show. There was a list put out by Billboard, top 25 best female rappers of all time. You know, Billboard's Billboard, so we'll see, what the criteria is and what that list entailed. No spoiler alerts right now for the people who haven't seen the list, but we're going to go through it. I wanted to start off the show, though, talking about the anniversaries. Off top, there was a 404 day here in Atlanta. Shout out to everybody in Atlanta. I was actually going to do a couple of things for that editorial wise. Hold on one second. I don't know what that was. My bad. Editorial wise, let me get back on the screen on my end. Somebody just interrupted the broadcast. But anyway, editorial wise, I want to do a couple of things. I actually was going to rank some of T.I.'s albums since you guys be sleeping on T.I.'s catalog, but we'll get to that in a second. But today, Goodie Mob's sophomore album, Still Standing, celebrates its 27th anniversary. Now, Goodie Mob and Outkast actually dropped in the same year, in 1998, which was kind of odd because they were kind of rotating years. Outkast dropped Southern Playalistic in 94, and Goodie Mob came with Soul Food in 95, and then Cass came with ATLians in 96. And then, Goodie Mob kind of, I don't want to say skipped a year, but they dropped earlier in 98. And, obviously Aquemini dropped as well. But that sophomore album for Goodie Mob was huge. It was a turning point in the group. You could see the growth. You could hear the growth. You had collaborations with Outkast still, like, Black Ice. But they were kind of turning the page in what they wanted to present to people, right? People Don't Dance No More was the lead single. It was more upbeat for Goodie Mob. We really expected more so the soulfulness of Goodie Mob from Soul Food and everything else that they, were a part of at that point. They were very conscious. And I think that it kind of gets lost in history how Goodie Mob was depicted. Outkast and Goodie Mob were they were a dual threat, if you will. And Cass was a little bit more commercial than Mob was. I think it's still that case, but Goodie Mob was always viewed as more of the street edgier and conscious group. And I feel like, as a fan, and this is just me as a fan, I haven't spoken to anybody in the group about this, but it feels like the sentiment was Goodie Mob wanted to get a little bit more of that commercial acclaim that Outkast was able to benefit from, in their career from jump. And I think that on Still Standing, They Don't Dance No More was a move towards that while still having a level of purpose. You really, really hear the growth in CeeLo as an artist on Still Standing. I've been very vocal, and I've always been consistent about this. In my personal opinion, I felt like Cujo was the best rapper on Soul Food, but on Still Standing, CeeLo's growth is just immense, and CeeLo is next level on that album. From Beautiful Skin to, again, They Don't Dance No More, his part on that. And it's just it's an incredible album. It's an album that doesn't really get the level of notoriety that I feel like it should, but I think that that's because, again, it dropped in the same calendar year as Outkast dropping Aquemini. And sometimes that sophomore effort, which in my personal opinion is not soul food, but it's not too far from it. You hear the growth. I listen to songs like The Dam all the time featuring Cool Breeze. Shout out to Cool Breeze. But yes, that album celebrates its anniversary today. And again, we don't talk enough about Goodie Mob in the lexicon of hip-hop history, but we do need to do a segment where we talk about the groups in hip-hop and what that means. And speaking of which, one of our more pivotal groups in hip-hop is celebrating the anniversary of their debut album, and that's Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince dropped Rock the House today in 1987. And I feel like on the flip side, we have another act that so accomplished. They on the other end of the spectrum where Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, both of them, and obviously Will Smith is Will Smith, they're so accomplished that I don't think that they get the credence and the proper credit that they should get as it pertains to their stamp in hip-hop history. They were the first to do so many. They were very commercially viable early. they had the hits. Rock the House had Girls Ain't Nothing But Trouble. Those are songs like that, not to date myself or anything, but in my childhood, those are some of the early hip hop songs that I remember being played on the radio back then. Like you would hear maybe a children's story, which is maybe a year later than that. But yeah, you would hear songs like, Parents Just Don't Understand, Girls Ain't Nothing But Trouble. And they were a part of that wave, of that commercially viable wave of hip hop music that just wasn't on the streets, but it not only made it to your radio, but it made it to your television. And a couple of years later, Will Smith as the Fresh Prince, or Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, made it to primetime television. That was a huge accomplishment. That would be a huge accomplishment today, to be in that NBC 8 o'clock spot on primetime television as a hip hop artist and your first time actually getting on stage. Savon, you here?
Yes, sir.
How we doing, man?
I'm all good. I'm all good. What's up, people? On this
Good,
good
good. Get him on the
Monday.
screen. Get him on the screen. Yeah, man. I'm saying, man, like Will, not just Will, Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince as a collective, I don't feel like get their just due. And I feel like a lot of that is because of the level of success that Will, as an entertainer, as an actor specifically, has been able to amass. And it's almost one of those things where people don't feel like you could be great at everything. And I feel like his rap career, and he's an old school rapper. Let's just be honest about it, right? Like, he came out in 87. You know what I'm saying? It's not many people from 87 that were able to continue and translate through different decades, and he's one of them. But they make it seem like his rap standpoint, or no, that's not the word I'm looking for. His rap accomplishments are as valid as they should be because he's Will Smith. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, he's a victim of his own success when it comes to how, like, I guess the younger generation will look at him, because there are some people that
Right.
didn't even know he rapped. Like, he put out this album, or he's doing promo for it, he's doing podcasts, and like there's some people from the younger generation is like, I didn't know he rapped, and which is kind of crazy. So, there's a lot of people that just don't know the history of him being in hip hop before he made his way on to, being an actor. So, I like when we are able to go back and talk about this type of stuff, because it kind of have to remind people or educate some younger ones who didn't know. Will Smith was cool to me. The guy, he had the fresh fade and the J's on all the episodes of Fresh Prince.
Right.
And that show came later on, but like, he was also cool in hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well,
I know.
one of the big things that you mentioned, the fashion. Not to interrupt you, but
Yeah,
I remember looking at this documentary on just urban fashion in general. And when you think about urban fashion, you think about the Fat Farms, the FUBU and Karl Kani. I feel like, well, Cross Color came first, but they started talking about Cross Color. I think it was either Karl Kani or somebody at FUBU, and correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, that actually interned for Cross Color, and Cross Color created a platform for either Karl Kani or FUBU, one of the two. But anyway, a lot of it starts with Cross Color. And the guy who owned Cross Color said their big break was when they gave Will Smith some clothes, and he wore that on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And that catapulted, a black-owned urban fashion line like Cross Color to a whole nother level.
yeah.
And those
I mean,
things that you could just directly, credit Will for, that he doesn't, that you don't think of.
yeah, there's certain people that just like, now we could look at it, you kind of see like kind of the product placement without it being official back then. I know he said he used to have Jordan sent to him before a show, and sometimes
Right.
it'll delay a taping of a show because you want to have the new Jordans for the show. But it was like
Yeah.
that cross promotion that was happening there. It was like, yo, he really had the J's for every episode, the great fives and stuff like that. And then,
Yeah.
you know, just there was so much that they put into the culture, is that they're having the DJ and the MC stuff. That was one of the things that like kind of resonated at that time. That was big. And Jazzy Jeff, I don't get enough credit for how dope of of a DJ he is, as long
Yeah,
as being his partner in crime is Jazz on the show that came later on. But as a DJ, Jazzy Jeff was really like that. I think we talked
still
about
is.
some top DJs in the past show, and I said Jazzy Jeff was like one of my favorites outside of like Kid Capri. Um, he really can get busy to this day. He still does live shows, on the TikTok or whatever. Like Jazzy Jeff could still do his thing. But Will, as the Fresh Prince, he was that guy, and uh I know like throughout the time, I guess he became uncool to some people, or I think some of this stuff is due to things outside of his control, but it's just like Will Smith as the Fresh Prince, he was that guy. And there's no taking away his impact, not only musically, but fashion wise, and then him shifting into other endeavors as far as acting and being behind the camera, as well as producing or co-executive producing shows that came later on television.
Well, let's explore that notion that Will is corny and too corny for rap and this and that.
Mhm.
In 1987, again, you have a budding genre. In my personal opinion, the guy who was like the superstar on all levels is LL Cool J. After Run DMC is kind of, waning off just, a little bit, and respectfully, because, times change and hip hop was obviously morphing and changing very quickly. But you needed somebody like Will Smith that could be commercially friendly, who could actually pull off a successful sitcom like a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. These type of things, and I just pointed to the whole cross color thing and that being on screen. You pointed to the Jordans, that being on screen. Hip hop culture needed to be on primetime television, and it took somebody who was commercially viable and who was safe enough, at the time, respectfully, to actually do that. And I think that people who do those things don't get enough props and enough respect. And I sometimes do that on this show when we talk about Ludacris. And I even say, yes, in my personal opinion, Ludacris isn't T.I. I saw the whole wave. I saw the movement here in the city. But what I will say about Ludacris is we did need a solo artist who was coming out of the city of Atlanta, who could be palatable to all regions and be commercially viable, skillful, make hit records. And Ludacris did that in a way that nobody else could have done that at the time. He was a personality. He came from the radio background, and he was able to provide something for the city that maybe he wasn't viewed as somebody who was running the city, but he created a lane for people who did get things bubbling in the city to kind of go in. And I feel like, people like Will, who had all that it took to help hip hop cross over, don't get the credit that they deserve in that light. I mean, imagine all the doors that the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air working actually opened. We actually saw Queen Latifah be able to hold down a sitcom with Living Single. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't know if these things happen. LL Cool J in the house. We don't know if these things happen if Fresh Prince of Bel-Air doesn't happen. And that has everything to do with Will Smith being a rapper. And yeah, maybe he might not have been the most aggressive MC out there, on wax or whatever, but that level of being able to do that actually, paved the way for hip hop. It's
Yeah,
that
I
everything I'm
mean,
not, maybe everything I am thing.
yeah, and the thing with me, I think people separate Fresh Prince from Will Smith, because Will Smith is the Hollywood. He's a superstar. He's who we see him as today. Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince. Fresh Prince is like who we ingrained him in hip hop to be, where he's
Yeah.
cool, where he was a part of. When we start talking hip hop history, you kind of have to throw Fresh Prince in there. Not
Yeah.
kinda, you have to. You have to.
Yeah.
You
It's
know what I'm
part
saying?
of the
So,
history, and we leave him
you know,
out a lot.
yeah, so I think they separate the two. It was cool for the Fresh Prince. It's cool for us to talk to him and discuss him in hip hop. For Will Smith, Will Smith as the artist, when he now, use his name as his moniker, is where I feel like they start looking at him as a little corny, because, he surpassed and did so well in hip hop that him coming back and the music was super clean and everything. They kind of viewed him
Yeah.
as that. And there's a lot of artists that like criticize him. Eminem even criticized, that on a record or whatever. But
I
when
never
he
liked
started
that.
coming, I mean, he still had big records. I mean,
Yeah.
he still had Miami and Get Jiggy with It and Men in Black and what was the other joint? Just the
Wild
two of
Wild West.
us, or
It's a
or
lot. Yeah.
he had records. They were still commercially successful as far as it being safe. But the Fresh
Millennium
Prince,
sold a lot of records.
yeah, but Fresh
Millennium was a
Prince
big
is like,
album.
yeah, but Fresh Prince is who we resonate and who we appreciate in hip hop.
Well,
Will Smith is just, he's different.
it's a couple things though, and you're right. Will Smith was somewhat different than Fresh Prince, but again, those guys came up in an era where the MC was attached to the DJ, right? You
Yeah.
had, cool DJ Polo and Cool G Rap. You had Eric B and Rakim. You know what I'm saying? On and on, so forth and so forth. And those acts came together, the MC and the DJ, and Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, of course. And so, like Rakim's career, you had Eric B and Rakim with 4 albums. Then Rakim goes quote unquote solo, and the Rakim albums are different than the Eric B and Rakim stuff. And it was similar to what Will was doing. Will Smith as a solo artist, I think, has never been separated from Will Smith, the actor. Whereas Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince Will Smith, for a lot of people, is more of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air Will Smith, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean?
Well, I think
It's
Fresh Prince, like it was still more hip hop. Even the delivery of how
yeah.
he rapped when he's under that moniker was different. It was still hip hop. This is real, the core essence of what hip hop was at that time. Like Fresh Prince is still that. When you get the Will Smith, the delivery when he rap is kind of different. The records, even like when you look at revisit some Fresh Prince songs, some of them was kind of like gimmicky and like whatever, but they were still like him rapping, and people could appreciate that in hip hop for what it was at that time. When we get into the Will Smith era of him making music and we see where hip hop is at that time, and then he hasn't done music for X amount of time, he's in Hollywood or whatever, it's like, I guess it started to look like him being detached from the hip hop scene, to where
Okay.
I feel like, and it was safe at that moment too, that I feel like people started to play some kind of like in that corny bag because they felt like it wasn't really what hip hop as a whole could identify with at the time, but it still was successful. But I feel like that's how they separate Fresh Prince and Will Smith. I mean, if Will Smith performs, everybody in hip hop still getting up on their feet for Fresh Prince records.
I'm gonna
Um,
be objective here, and I do think
so,
that some of the corniness or whatnot, or things that people would deem corny, is Will trying to kind of trying to shoehorn the movie and the actor stuff into music that goes with the film, like the Wild Wild West. I never liked that record, but that was for the movie, right? The Men in Black song, I hate that record too. Again, for the movie. Get Jiggy with It, I like Get Jiggy with It. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that when the times that things came off commercial and corny is when he was trying to, attach something to a film that he was doing. But again, it's a double-edged sword because those were very successful records because it had a film attached to it on top of that. And, you kind of run the risk of, it's almost like doing a commercial, right? Like when most of the times when rappers go out there and do a commercial for something and they're rapping with that commercial, it comes across as corny. And I think that the Men in Black song, and somebody in the chat said the Men in Black song slaps. That's fine. I
I
never
like the
liked
Man in Black
it.
song when I was a kid.
You liked
I
it
ain't gonna
when
lie,
you
I
were
like
a
the Man
kid
in Black
though.
when I was a
Like,
kid.
but as an
It's still
adult,
not bad hearing it now. You know what I'm saying? But like, I think that's
I'm
different
jaded
from
because
like,
I love the Patrice Rushen version of "Forgive Me Nots," and I think that's probably what it is.
it's just, I mean, but like I said, I don't even think it's because it was attached to stuff. Because even if you look at the theme song of Fresh Prince, come on now, you know what I'm saying? It was always kind of, when he got into that realm of stuff, he always attached it. I just think the
Yeah,
delivery and the imagery of it was kind of like, it was real bubble gum in the era of when hip hop has kind of got more aggressive or whatnot, versus in the 87 and later on with Will Smith when he got in the summertime and all that in that bag. I feel like hip hop was still kind of like in a fun place where it's still kind of organic, and
right.
the DJ was still important or whatever. I just feel like he's a victim of Hollywood and a victim of the transition of hip hop and where it was versus the clean approach and stuff he was doing then. I mean, I don't think it
Yep.
was nothing he did wrong. It was still successful on both sides. I just feel like he's just victim of times changing, and then where hip hop is went into the keep it real phase and kind of phased out of like the commercially viable stuff, especially when you have artists that's speaking out against stuff like it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, that
yeah,
was
that's
a big
hip
thing. That
hop
was
and
a big
stuff, and it's like that's kind of crazy to say when this guy reasonably so can be named as one of the beginners or pioneers of it. Um, and coming from the 80s or whatever. So it's kind of funny how that works, but he's just victim of times changing, really.
I mean, you know what it is, and for you to even bring that up, you're right. It's like Hammer and Fresh Prince, they got a lot of unnecessary hate from some of their peers because they were they were big, they were huge, and I think another collective that was huge in that time was Kid and Play. I don't think they get
Yeah,
enough credit either. And again, they all had that similar attribute of being able to be not only palatable, but something that your parents would let you listen to. And I think for some of the hardcore, hip hop artists at the time, they wanted to speak down on that because, they want you to listen to their stuff. You know what I'm saying? And they understood that, well, this is my image. This person has a clean cut image. We're in competition. You know what I mean? And I think that hip hop being such a counterculture at the time, it seems like that's the area that people didn't want hip hop to go in. But when we look back at it, as commercial as hip hop has become, and as influential that hip hop has become in popular culture, these guys were pioneers in that light. You know what I'm saying? Like these guys crossed over before there really was a hip hop crossover. When Biggie said, whoever thought hip hop could take it this far, you got people like Will Smith to thank for that. You know what I mean? And he
yeah.
doesn't get that credit. And it took somebody who was clean cut, who didn't curse in their rhymes, whose music that your parents will let you listen to actually get on NBC at 8 o'clock prime time on Monday every single week. Yeah, I mean it is what it is.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny is like these type of artists were spoke on later on when hip hop took that transition, but it's funny how they like still follow their blueprint in a way.
Yeah.
Like
Even the
it's
endorsements
kind
that
of
Hammer
funny
was
because
doing, they was talking down on endorsements back then. Like
yeah, it's
Hammer
cool
broke
to
down the
have
door on that.
yeah, it's cool to have the streets behind you, and have that with you to something to really make some money, and then you
Yeah,
wish you could like make that transition like Will. Like we're never gonna see too many people that's like, I mean, we're gonna see many artists or whatever that transition to other endeavors, whether it's outside of music or film or whatever. But the way the transition happened, like Will's transition was like him acting was like a natural. Him and Fresh Prince was a natural. When you look at that pilot episode and you look at what that came to be, like to make the transition from music, because even his music videos had an element of him acting in it in a way.
you're
But
right.
like to see him
Very,
go into acting
yeah,
and do
very
so
theatrical.
well, yeah, and do so well, and the early roles being from comedic to drama is like he was just a Hollywood star, man. Like
Yeah,
there's only a shoe hand of people, a handful of people that really make that transition really seamless. Where it didn't seem like, man, it was a little shaky in the beginning. Like Pac, it was like he's a natural. Pac was a natural. Queen Latifah to me was a natural. Ice Cube, in the beginning to me seemed like a natural in Boys in the Hood, and things like that. And it's just certain people that will look down on artists like that, but like a Will Smith, but in turn would want the success that they have later on when they grow and understand, man, what is really about and what the legacy is all about. I'm pretty sure they'll want a career like Will Smith. You know what I'm saying? As far as
yeah.
the
Who
success,
wouldn't? Like,
who
who
wouldn't?
would? Yeah, I mean, let's just be honest. People will hate on Will and even Hammer at the time, but if they could trade places and have that level of success that Will Smith had, they would definitely take that. And I got to give Will that credit because in that time period, I mean, you even said it. You're right. Pac was a natural, especially for the roles that he was playing. But I don't feel like any rap artist at that time could have pulled off what Will pulled off with the Fresh Prince. I think
Yeah,
the only people that even would be in that conversation would be Heavy D, Kid and Play, Queen Latifah, but that specific role for Fresh Prince of Bel Air, nobody would have pulled that
Taylor
off. Like,
fit for him. It was perfect.
yeah, it was fit. Yeah, it was a perfect fit, and story goes it was based on Benny Medina's life, record executive, and yeah, he fit right into that, and it was perfect for him. And not only did he kick in the door for himself and many others in that cast who were already seasoned actors and actresses at that time, especially the adults, but again, he's bringing hip hop culture to primetime television. And I think that point gets understated so much. I think in the beginning, like you said, with the first couple seasons, he does look like a fish out of water on some episodes, and it's meant to be tongue in cheek and meant to be funny. But again, he's bringing the Jays to primetime television. He's bringing Cross Color to primetime television. You know what I'm saying? Like, the HBCU gear, all that stuff. Like, there was nobody there to do that at that point. And, we saw what Martin's show did when, Martin would come with the Cross Color and all of that. But again, got to give Will Smith his props and his credit for that. And I love the fact that he was able to drop Summertime, in my personal opinion, one of the 25 best hip hop songs ever, while he was on television. Like, I remember when the show came on and they dropped the music video after the show. And I was like, yo, this song is great. I think that was the first time I heard Summertime. What a platform.
Yeah, man. And another thing about Will too, and here's a hip hop what if that I want to throw in early in the
All
show.
right, let's go into what
I'm
if
pretty sure
early.
people, like, if they probably already know the story, but for the ones who don't, cool. I'm sharing it for the ones who don't. I interviewed Play from Kid and Play about 5 years ago, and
Okay.
he said originally House Party was written for Fresh Prince and Jazzy Jeff. What happened was currently at that time, Will Smith and Jazzy Jeff turned it down because they were currently being sued um from, I think it was Warner Brothers who made the movie, or somebody who was behind the movie, because they were currently being sued for the Nightmare on My Street record that they made, for them, the stuff with Nightmare on Elm Street. And so because they were also being sued, they were like, I know you guys ain't trying to get us to get in this movie. You guys are suing us. So them kind of like being petty, they turned it down, and that's how um Kid and Play got the movie. But originally it was supposed to be for Fresh Prince and Jazzy Jeff. So hip hop what if moment. I wonder how that movie would have ended up being, or if it would have gave the same essence if it would have been Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince versus Kid and Play. For me,
Well, I'm glad that it happened the way that it happened. And it's funny how those things happen because, I feel like, I think that things happen the way they're supposed to. But let's just say Jazzy Jeff and Will did it. I think it would only been one. And I don't know if they would have been able to, have us buy in to that, house party series like we bought in with the Kid and Play, because part of the buy-in was the fact that for a lot of people, these guys were new. And you know what I'm saying? These guys were dancers, and they were able to bring a lot on screen that I don't know if Will and Jazzy Jeff would have been able to bring, because we already knew them from another show. And we already had an image in our head about, what their relationship was like based on the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. I love the fact that they involved Jazz so much on the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. I thought that was brilliant. I love the way that Jazz was implemented in the show. Even when I watch the reruns now, and like you said, Jazzy Jeff is one of the greatest DJs in hip hop history. To see that, he brought his guy along for the ride with that, and they could have.
He did well acting as well.
Yeah, he did great. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love that. I thought that was really, really dope. But yeah, to answer your question, I think it happened the way that it needed to happen, and I think that was great for Kid and Play. You know what I'm saying? Like, their action hip hop history just based on that house party series, and I love Class Act too. How was that interview with Play? I mean, with Play.
Oh, it was dope. We did like a little bit over an hour. It was a dope interview I did. He was actually my first video interview I did. Beforehand, I was doing like via call interviews,
Hmm.
but Play was my first on video interview, and we discussed a lot, man. And my relationship with Play before that is in college. I took a hip hop humanities course at FAMU. The first year it was offered, and him and there was another professor, Dr. Kwachi Clemens. They brought the class there for a humanities course, and I needed a humanities course like going into my senior year. So I took it. It was a hip hop humanities course, and it was dope, man. Play was one of the teachers that like one of the guest teachers or whatever that every time, every other day, if I'm going into the class, he's gonna be there. I get to talk to him. I remember back then, you listen to some of my old music and stuff like that. Like it was just cool to have that conversation. They really talk real hip hop history. Like they were
Mm.
like, I remember they had us watch Beat Street and stuff like that. Like they was giving us, I mean, no, Crush Groove, sorry. And we watched, a little bit of Beat Street, but I remember like they was giving us real like hip hop history in there. And that was a course that I felt like this is dope because you get your humanities credit, but you also get the real hip hop history, man. And who better
Yeah.
than somebody who's actually around for a lot of it and gave us a lot of like stories we didn't know of. And, yeah, we did that hour something interview, man. It was pretty good.
Jermaine Johnson with the super chat says, my favorite part of Fresh Prince was that he always had the baddest baddies in Black Hollywood. All of his girlfriends were fire. Who was the baddest that Will had?
He had some bad ones on that show, man.
He did, man. I was just watching the episode with the poetry slam or whatever when he was faking like he knew this world renowned poet. But who was the young lady
I
back
remember he
then?
had
Was
some.
that one from House Party, I believe, actually. Hold on. I'm about to look up the name. The one from Baby Boy.
Oh,
Hold
Sherane. What was
on.
it? Is it AJ Johnson? Is that her name?
Yeah, I think so. Hold on. Let me make sure. I know the people in the chat are gonna be killing me. Like, I think she was in House Party as well. Yeah, AJ Johnson. Yeah, she was
Yeah,
in that episode, looking good.
yeah,
Yeah, man.
yes, sir.
But
Sherane.
him and Nia Long were awesome,
Nia Long looked like Nia Long's been fine her whole life, but she was
man.
the shortcut. The shortcut on Fresh Prince. Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah,
But
I was
he
hating
did
that
have
didn't work
bad
out
ones
for
in
them
there.
on the show. On the show, I was even like, oh man, Will Tyra Banks. Yeah, I forgot
Yeah,
he had
Vivica
Tyra
Fox looked
Banks.
good when she was on there when she played the episode on there.
Yeah. Yeah,
Vivica
AJ
Fox.
Johnson might be my answer. No, actually, I'm based on the show. I'm gonna go Nia and then maybe AJ Johnson. Yeah, he did have Stacey Dash on one of them
Casey
too, didn't
Dash. Yeah,
he? Yeah.
yeah,
Damn,
it's some
Will.
bad. Some bad ones. Yeah,
Somebody
some
said
bad.
Pam Grier. Was Pam Grier on there?
I don't
No,
know, man. He
I
had the
don't
bad
remember
ones on
Pam
there,
Grier.
man.
But yeah, man. Again, pioneers in so many different ways. Now, I was gonna ask you too. While talking about the
Yeah.
plate thing. Like, what was something? And I know you already had a relationship, but it's something in the interview that he said that you didn't know, or how were you able to even put together that interview when you already knew him?
Well, at the time, I didn't know about the house party thing.
Okay.
I asked them about how they came into that, and then on top of that, um, how was it early for them and in hip hop and the transition that it was going through when they were rappers. And you know he one thing I found out was interesting. He talks about a tour where they were actually openers for NWA, and he was like, you would think an
Mm,
act like us, why would be on tour with them? He was like, well, a lot of like back then used to use them for insurance purposes. Like they went on
mm,
tour, because a lot of people, a lot of venues didn't want to book just NWA or whatever else because of elements. So they'll put like a safer group or somewhere on top of there, to ensure that everything was be fine. And they went on tour with NWA, and he was talking about the relationship they had together with NWA and Easy and them. And so that was a cool conversation to have about what they stuff was being on tour. Another cool thing that we talked about was like how the movie how the movies came about, but how the success was going into that. Because before in the prior episode, he had mentioned the first rap Grammys or whatever, and Play and Kid and Play, they were there at the boycott, when Will Smith won that Grammy for his first one or whatever, and how they did the boycott, and they're actually there in the picture, and he talked about, that day and how that came about and all of them being out there and stuff, and them not knowing how big that was going to be and how iconic it was going to be and what that picture was going to mean, but he talked about that, so that was a cool conversation to have as well. So
Did he say who? I mean, because I know it was a collective mindset, but did he say like who kind of corralled that situation, or did they all just come together and just say, "Yo, we're not doing
I
that"?
think he did. I have to go back and revisit it. I think he did, but I know it was like an effort. I know all of them was out there. It was like Salt and Pepper, like
Yeah,
then
one would
it was a
assume
bunch
it
of
was Chuck
like
D. You know,
yeah, it was
one
like a
would
lot of
assume,
them out there, man. It's an iconic picture. You can still Google it. Like all of them
yeah,
is in the picture. But like, yeah, he talks about that, and Play's still he's still working. I know he does stuff behind the camera. He does like documentaries or whatnot. He's him and Kid have a podcast now. I think it's called Funhouse Podcast or something like that. It's named after one of their
okay,
records. So they
I
have a
love it.
podcast. That's kind of cool. And he's active on IG, you know what I'm saying? So he's like somebody like who still he puts out content and he's actually caught up to you know, where things are now as far as being, on socials and stuff like that. Especially Kid. Kid is really active on socials. But Play, like he's no stranger to it. He's still active. But it's funny that I did bring that up as a what if, like what it would have been if it would have been Fresh Prince and Jazzy Jeff's house party, because I'm with you. I actually think it panned out to be the right people because we
Mhm.
were used to like Will and Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, or even what they did musically, and it still kind of had a clean thing. And also Ken and Play did, but I think they were able to take it to um lengths that like that Jazzy Jeff and Will Smith probably didn't want to, because like if
Mhm.
you look at the first movie from 1 through 3, it kind of got a little bit raunchier. It kind of got a little bit, especially the second one,
Yeah,
Kid go to college, it got a little, and then the third one, they really showed love to, TLC and Immature or whatever. But you kind of see they were able to dip in the lanes where I don't think Will and Jazzy probably would have wanted to image
you're right.
wise. For them, they gave you that coming of age, but it still kept it like still kind of like um I guess given that edge or whatever with where they are at their age range at that time or whatever. You still had like some scenes in there and stuff like that, and language and stuff like that in
Yeah.
those movies that I don't think you would have been able to do with Will and Jazzy.
I agree. I agree 100%. Yeah, I think the content of it all, and you said something when you were talking about, Play saying that, they were put on the bill with like an NWA for
Mhm.
insurance purposes many of the times because, venues needed to be able to book these acts and have to insure to the
Yeah,
venue that, shit ain't gonna pop off. And I don't think that the groups like Kid and Play, Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince and all of them get enough credit for being that balance that hip hop needed at that time when hip hop was trying to break through. So shout out to them, man. Shout out to
yeah,
Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Shout out to Kid and Play. All that talk about Will being corny and all that, like that shouldn't even be a conversation.
yeah.
Like
Like
songs
even the
like
links where they were to take it, like them transitioning to TV and film early, like
yeah,
we said, Queen Latifah had Living Single. Will he had Fresh Prince early too.
yeah,
We talked about LL in the house. There were some people that kind of made those transitions to stuff very well, and still are within that realm of stuff to this day. Whether it's co-producing, like Flavor Unit is behind, a lot of stuff in TV and stuff, just like Will has been behind some sitcoms that if you look in the credits, it'll say executive produced by Will Smith, or
yep.
Will and Jada, So I think they had to show it Dwayne Martin that they executive produced, with Lisa Ray or whatever. I forgot what the name of it was. And they did
I know
some
what
other
you're
stuff. But
talking about.
yeah,
The two of us, something like that.
yeah, but
Party in
some
the
of them,
Chat.
yeah, and then like from movies to television, I mean Kid and Play had a cartoon.
Yeah, man. Kid and Play had
You
a
know what I'm saying?
cartoon,
They
man.
had a
They were
cartoon,
huge.
bro. Like this is things that's like if you're an artist of today, I don't know why you wouldn't want the type of success. You know what I'm saying? Like,
There's
but
room
they
for
are making
everybody.
them.
I
I'm
mean, you
sorry.
got a Two Live Crew shirt on, right? There was room for Two Live Crew. There was room for
Mhm.
De La Soul. There was room for Kid and Play, Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, A Tribe Called Quest, NWA. Public Enemy, Big Daddy Kane. Like there was room for all of us. That was the name of the show. There was
Yeah.
room for all of these approaches, and that's what made hip hop really great in that moment. And that's what made it also when the media would try to hone in on gangster rap and this and that, it also gave hip hop an outlet to say, hey, not all hip hop is like this. You know what I'm saying? Like there are a whole bunch of different avenues, and you had a lot of different success stories to show that representation. Hip hop had a
And when
lot
I
of
look back,
representation at that time.
and then when I look back at like the stuff like the Fresh Prince or like watching like House Party, whatever, I don't look at that stuff as being corny. I look at that like, damn, that looked like a time to be alive. Like I look at House Party and I look at like how I came up and be like, man, I wish, like I was outside when fortunately I was one of the last generation that got to experience going to team parties and having fun in my youth and stuff like that, compared to what a lot of teenagers probably aren't able to do now due to a lot of different reasons. But um I look at House Party and be like, man, like, yeah, although I got to experience stuff like this as a teen, you won't get it in that essence like that. Like, it make you wish you was there in that time. Like, I don't look at that stuff as being uncool at all. Like
Yeah,
they made it cool to be who they are. When I looked at Play, back then I thought he was the cool guy. You know what I'm saying? When I'm looking at
yeah,
Fresh Prince and he like you guys mentioned, he had like the baddest chicks on the show. He had the J's, the Fresh Fade. Like these guys made stuff look cool to me in image of what it was then, as far as like what became to be uncool with hip hop today. Like when I look at that stuff was cool to me.
well,
So
the thing with Kid and Play and Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, they depicted young black teenagers, and I know Kid and Play probably were a little bit older, but just that whole depiction, they depicted young black teenagers having fun.
yeah.
Whereas like a lot of hip hop at that time, you had teenagers who were basically thrown into adulthood like right away, and we were looking at our hip hop artists who were very young as grown people, and I think that whole quote unquote corny teenager, you know what I'm saying, where you did have young black teenagers, if you will, just acting like teenagers and not having to act like they were 25, 30 years old. Like a lot of our young people had to grow up fast, you know what I'm saying. It was cool and refreshing to show that not everybody had to grow up fast. And yeah,
It's funny
it was
because
needed.
even musically with Kid and Play, maybe it had been clean, but you watch stuff like House Party and you see the language, you see certain things that's happening. That's
Yeah,
still what made them cool. Is like you watch stuff like House Party. I think it extended their cool outside of the music. Like I didn't appreciate House Party too until I actually went to college and I was like,
yeah,
yo, I went to HBCU. Like of an updated version, this is kind of like what my life was being up there. You know what I'm saying? Like the parties and the women, and you got little things that's going up there. I mean, it was a little bit different, but it's like that introduction to that. And then when I watch House Party 3 and I'm seeing that's that transition, as you can see the soundtrack, they had Snoop and Dre on a certain scene on there. So you can see where I'm making that transition and they're trying to take it there. But I look back at Class Act. That stuff was cool to me. Like
yeah,
I'm saying, the imagery of all
yeah.
that stuff made me want to be a part of that. Like it was never uncool. Even when I watch it now, that's classic stuff to me.
Do you think that it was an intention, especially since we know that film was made for Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince? Do you think there was an intention once Kid and Play got the role was to actually do some things that maybe Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince couldn't do or wouldn't do to kind of differentiate themselves from the two?
Nah, because I don't think it was to the public. It was supposed to be for them. So I think they
Okay.
made whatever they wanted to make out of it. And I feel like it was more natural because it was like with people they grew up knowing. Like Kid and Play had a relationship with Martin. All of them used to
Yep.
work around each other. It was them, I mean not Queen Latifah, but them, Salt and Pepper,
Yep.
and Martin. And I remember like there's a
That
story
Herbie
about
crew.
Martin tried to holler at Salt, I think, and didn't know Salt was dating Herbie Lovebug, who used to manage, Kid and Play and Salt and Pepper. Like they all knew each other as teenagers. I think um if I'm not mistaken, I think like Martin worked at a local gas station and Kid and Play and them, like they all worked at Sears with Salt and Pepper or something. They all knew each other in some form of
Yeah.
fashion. So it was more like organic with Will. I mean not with Will. I'm keep on mixing them up, but with Kid and Play and then Martin.
Yeah.
And then you throw in the guys on there,
Yeah.
Full Force, and that was
Yeah.
like the icing on the cake. And then we got a lot of firsts in a lot of those movies too. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like you got Bernie Mac in House Party 3. We got Chris Tucker in House Party 3.
Yep.
You get
Was
introduced
Bernie
to more
Mac in
as a
2
kid.
also? No. Bernie Mac was in 2
He was in
also, right?
3. No, he was
When,
just in 3.
when his father passed.
Yeah, he was in 3.
Yeah,
But
Robin Harris.
John
Rest in
Witherspoon
peace,
is in the
Robin
first
Harris.
one.
Yeah.
You
Now
know,
I thought that the sequels, were really dope for House
yeah,
Party, man. Shout out to them, man. We could
I love
go on
all
and
three
on.
of them.
Speaking of Salt and Pepper and Queen Latifah, Billboard just put out a list for Billboard staff ranking the best female rappers of all time. Now, this is Billboard, so a lot of people are automatically going to say this is about numbers or whatever. So I want to actually go to this article and I want to go to where the criteria is and see where their criteria comes from. Somebody says Martin from New York. I think Martin was up in New York trying to make it. I think Martin's from DC, right? Is he from
Yeah, I
Baltimore?
think Mark from DC. He was military too. Like, I mean, his pops or somebody in his family was military. So yeah, but he spent a lot of time in New York.
Billboard says the 25 best female rappers of all time. Staff picks now. So I'm glad they put it on the staff now. It said today's landscape wouldn't have been possible without the pioneering role of women MCs in the era when the field was predominantly male in the 70s, 80s. These fearless wordsmiths, including MC Lyte, Roxanne Shante, Salt and Pepper, and Queen Latifah, emerged to transform it. MC Lyte, the first female MC ever to release a solo studio album, and Roxanne Shante, who showcased her dominance during her lyrical tussle with UTFO, are just a few examples of the incredible talent that emerged. Salt and Pepper, with their magnetic personalities and sex appeal, showed the world that women can run the game with the best of them, both on and off the mic. And then there's Missy, whose innate creativity not only made music videos motion picture quality, but also threw convention out the window, leaving the lasting impact on the genre. Let's see what the criteria is here. I'm not trying to ramble on. I just want to catch everything. Some of the greatest master works of in rap today were crafted by women, including Lauryn Hill's Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. We'll talk about that. Which won 5 Grammys? Nicki Minaj's Pink Friday, which was certified triple platinum, and now Doechie's revered Grammy Award-winning project Alligator Bites Never Heal. The genre doesn't move without women. With the fury of artists today zipping past the competition, ranging from Megan Thee Stallion to Cardi B to Glorilla and Lotto, it's hard to imagine what hip-hop would be if women MCs didn't have a say in the genre ever-growing evolution. All right, below, Billboard staff compile our picks for 25 best female MCs, rappers of all time, along with the following criteria. Here we go. Criteria is body of work / achievements, charted singles / albums, gold / platinum certifications, cultural impact / influence, how the artist works to foster the genre's evolution, longevity, years on the mic, lyrics, storytelling skills, and flow, vocal prowess. Lord with the super chat says, Young M.A. LA Leakers freestyle. Ha ha! Young M.A. was left off this list. Good catch. See our picks below. Okay, let me go over this criteria one more time. Body of work / achievements. It's charted singles / albums, gold / platinum certifications. Okay. Cultural impact / influence, how the artist works to foster the genre's evolution. Longevity, years on the mic, lyrics, storytelling skills, and flow, vocal prowess. Okay. All right. So here's the list. The list is, I had it right here. All right, here it is. I don't know if we got the list on the screen, but maybe our people in the background can get that on the screen. At number 25, excuse me, we got Tierra Whack. Number 24, we got Doechii. Number 23, we got Gangsta Boo. Number 22, Lady of Rage. I like Lady of Rage being included here. 21, we got Glorilla. 20, we got Moni Love. 19, we got Lotto. 18, we got Remy Ma. 17, we got Rhapsody. 16, we got Doja Cat. 15, we got Megan Thee Stallion. 14, we got Left Eye. 13, we got Trina. 12, we got The Brat. 11, we got Cardi B. 10, we got Foxy Brown. 9, Eve. 8, Roxanne Shante. 7, Salt and Pepper. 6, MC Lyte. 5, Queen Latifah. 4, Lil Kim. 3, Lauryn Hill. 2, Missy. And number 1, Nicki Minaj. All right, I want to say this. I don't know how heavy they leaned on that charts situation when they got Roxanne Shante at number 8. And see, I was going to kind of give them an out for this list based on that piece of criteria and them being Billboard. But I mean, when you have a criteria that base body of work / achievements with singles / albums, gold / platinum certifications, I love Roxanne Shante, but she doesn't, you know what I'm saying, number 8 on a list like that just doesn't, I mean, you know what I mean? Her legend's based on something else and no records really involved. We got LB with the super chat says, damn, Mia X don't make the list? Shaking my head.
She should be on the list.
She should be on the list, and she should be very high on the list. I think, you know, rest in peace to Gangsta Boo. I love Gangsta Boo. Huge 666 fan. Y'all know this. I think she's one of the most underrated MCs, period. The only reason why she's on this list is because she's no longer here, unfortunately. Because they've always slept on Gangsta Boo. And I hate to say that, but it is what it is.
So this is why I'm always going to say every list they come out, I hate lists because they say the criteria is this, and it just shows that like they just throw stuff into things, like they throw artists on there. For example, love Doechii, but Doechii shouldn't be on this list. It's too early. It's too early. He has one like widely recognized project, and it's a mixtape. She doesn't have enough right now. Tierra Whack, she's been out for some years, but I don't know how she ends up on this, you know, on this list. I don't really know how they put this list together. You know, I could see how
she's another person whose this criteria doesn't fit at all. Like, I mean, listen, I could be out of the loop, but what are Tierra Whack's songs like that?
Well, I know people that like Tierra Whack.
For sure, I think she's dope.
I just don't
she have those songs.
I just don't think it's like her career has been long enough or the accomplishments or the projects has been out there enough for it to be on this list. You know, that's why I say, and I think that could be argued for, you know, a few people on the list, you know, because it's not like Lauryn Hill has a great range of music. You know, it's not like Cardi has only one album, but even like Cardi's impact and influence could still be on the defense of what she lacks in albums. You know what I'm saying? But like, I don't know, bro. I don't know how they put this list together. I even have a problem with Nicki being number 1. I think Nicki should at least be top 3, but number 1 is crazy to me. And people, and this might go against the grain, but to me, I feel like the majority of Nicki's success of what is recognized is not due to what she did rapping wise, it's due to the pop records. Because if you look at for this to be Billboard and you look at her top records or number 1 records, they're not her hip hop records. They're like Moment for Life. And yeah, it's super bass, stuff like that. But it doesn't take away from her quality of what she did as a female artist. You know, she had to work just as hard. I remember hearing her when she was running around with Gucci, and then hearing her when she first signed to Young Money. Like, so I know she can get busy. I know she could rap. I know she could do these things, but like, I think a little bit of some bias goes to Nicki because like, and this is not her fault at all, but I think some of it goes to her because she was out during a time when there wasn't a lot of artists out at the same time as her. So she won a lot of stuff by default and got a lot of credit due to default. I mean, she delivered as far as what she's supposed to as a female artist, but it's just like she's kind of like up there just due with the time that she came out with and not really having no real competition. I wonder how would that have been if there had been real competition out there with her, like these other artists. You know, like
Well,
we
we
could say,
saw what happened. Not to cut you off, we saw what
Mhm.
happened when there was a level of competition that came when Cardi came with invasion of privacy. It was conflicting. It wasn't even like a I'm gonna beat you out with the music. It was get her out of here type stuff. Now I will say this. Number one, based on a list like this and the criteria or whatever, Lil Kim should be number one here. Point
I
blank, period.
agree.
Not number four. We're talking about impact. We're talking about the albums, a discography. I mean, she has hardcore, which, in my personal opinion, well, my personal favorite female rap album is Rod Digger's Dirty Harriet. But if I'm being objective here, the best female rap album of all time, it has to go to hardcore. It just has to. You know what I'm saying? And she has hardcore in her catalog. She has the Notorious K.I.M. in her catalog. She got the Naked Truth in her catalog. And whether we agree if that's a 5 mic album or not from the source, it was 5 mics. She got all of the notable features with Benjamin's
I
Quiet
agree.
Storm remix. You know what I'm saying? She has countless memorable bars. She got that. She got the records. She got No Time. She got Crush on You. She got records. Like she's number one on this list. And then she got the longevity on top of that, man. She's battle tested. Whatever you want to say about Kim, she's done it. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
And
and then the knock on Kim is a lot of people will be like, "Oh, she didn't write her own rhymes." Well, we seen where her pen was like after Big was gone,
yeah.
so it proved that she was able to do that. But even still,
Well,
she had to
Biggie says
deliver.
that
And
himself. He says I ain't gotta. He said that he wrote for Junior Mafia, but he said Kim is gonna be fine. I ain't got to do nothing for her, really. Big said this.
yeah, but Kim, like even what she ushered in, like if we want to love artists of today or even love Nicki to the extent of we have to respect what Kim did because they're all fruit of her tree from the imagery. I remember the
Yeah,
iconic picture of Kim with her legs open, whatever. Like Nicki went and recreated her own version of that. Like she kind of still wanted the love that like how Kim was revered and how the imagery of that's still something that she kind of had as inspiration. She can't deny that whether they're rivals or not. I mean it's there, the proof is in the pudding. But Kim was that one, just like I feel like
yeah.
Foxy, that top five should really have Foxy, Kim, and the Brat in it. The Brat should
Yeah.
definitely be there.
The
You know what I'm
Brat got
saying?
shit on too. There's
I
no
have
way
no
on
problem with
earth.
the, I'm
There's
sorry.
no way on earth you're gonna put Cardi B with one album. It's been 7 years and counting. Invasion of Privacy just celebrated 7 years a couple of days ago. She has one album in her catalog. There's no way you're putting Cardi B over the Brat. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no way. The Brat, even outside of being a dope MC, she has a catalog, and she was the first female to ever go platinum. So you can't take those type of things away. And you really think that you want to get Cardi B and the Brat on the track? And you want to talk about somebody who clearly doesn't write their own stuff? Cardi B's admitted that she doesn't write her own stuff. The Brat has clearly written for other people. The Brat was writing for Bow Wow. The Brat was writing for other folks.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't like where she is on here either. But I
I do
think
like that they put Eve in the top 10 because I feel like Eve does need
yeah,
to be in the top 10.
oh yeah, yeah. I
Eve,
think he belongs
Eve
for
was
sure.
dope.
Love is Blind, I think, is a very dope single that was necessary. It put you in the mind of some of the stuff that Queen Latifah and MC Light would have made like in the early '90s, but he did it in a different time and place. And it was real gutsy at the time when a lot of female MCs were being oversexed. But again, that's the Kim effect. You want to know how impactful Lil Kim was? They had the Brat out here with in a bathing suit. You know what I'm saying? Like, like what I'm saying with the cans out, man. That's how impactful Kim was. Kim
Like,
changed the whole wardrobe.
yeah, like Kim is like the reason why, rap, like females in rap had took that raunchy approach and imagery of it, and
Yeah,
had the sets with it. You know what I'm saying? But as far as, like I said, you care who wrote or whatever, her delivery, the imagery, the style, and everything of Kim is something that I feel like a lot of the rappers around that, female rappers at that time, were inspired by. Just taking the risk that she took. And being the only female out of her crew as well. I mean, I think it was dope. I do think Nicki deserves to be in the top 5. I do, but I
yeah,
do think the
yeah.
Brat deserves to be up there too, because the Brat, not only was the Brat, like how you said, not only a writer for herself but for others. She was the first female rapper to go platinum, and she didn't have to sell sets, and she didn't sell sets. And
Yeah.
she's one of those top spitters. If you line up any of those female rappers, there's not a lot of people that could out rap the Brat at that time. Like, the Brat was nice. Like
The
she's nice.
people,
I
and
think
I
people got mistaken
back
how
in the
dope
day,
she
the
was.
Brat was the Brat. Maybe I'm a little biased because I was here in Atlanta, and Jermaine was down here cooking with the Brat. Um, she was my favorite at the time, but if I'm being objective, the people that I would put ahead of the Brat, I would put Kim ahead of the Brat. I would put Foxy ahead of the Brat.
Mhm.
Um, Lauren, we're gonna take her out of the conversation for a second because
Yeah.
and we'll address Lauren in a second. I would put Eve ahead of the Brat. That's a close one. Let me put that to the side. Let me put that to the side. That's tough. I'm gonna put Queen Latifah ahead of the Brat. I'm gonna put MC Light ahead of the Brat. And I put Nicki ahead of the Brat.
Mhm.
Um, just off the top of my head, let me look at the rest of this list. Um, I think if I'm being objective though, and I look at Eve in totality, and you look at the subject matter and the versatility of Eve, I think the Brat kind of struggled to find an identity once the G Funk phase was kind of done, because a lot of people feel like Jermaine's direction on the Brat was kind of making her a female Snoop, and when G and Funkdafied's kind of a product of that, you even see it in the video. And once G Funk kind of transitioned out, I think the Brat kind of struggled to find an identity, and I can't say the same for Eve. So I would objectively put Eve above the Brat. Um, now I'm looking at Megan Rhapsody and people like that, and I think that's a good discussion. But yeah, I think Brat's still top 10. You know what I'm
Top 10.
saying?
Yeah.
And yeah. But yeah, objectively though, off top, I would say I put Kim, Foxy, Latifah, Light, Nicki, and Eve over Brat, and probably a couple of others just based on the in longevity. But if we're just talking about bars and skills or whatever, and getting on one track and somebody standing out, the Brat's different for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. But Foxy should be in that top 5. Kim should be in that top 5. Missy should be in that top 5.
I don't know about Missy being that top 5, and
I do.
I've always hurrahed Missy extremely high. She's an interesting case because if we're going just on songwriting, Missy's number one. But if we're just talking about bars and rhyming, it's like a lot of Missy's rhymes weren't really put out there to be taken serious. I think that she's such a hybrid of a singer and an MC. She's really tough to rate in that way.
Well, I don't
And
like that if you do that to Missy, because we didn't start looking at as a female rapper being in a certain way until we got the Kims and the Foxies or whatever. Beforehand, it was like the Queen Latifahs and the MC Lights or whatever. Like, Missy couldn't fit a mold of anything and created her own way as delivering stuff. We shouldn't knock her for her creative way of delivering stuff.
well,
Miss
it's not that. It's not that. It's the density of the actual bars themselves. I look at Missy and listen, I'm a huge Missy fan, and I could pull up my old Facebook post from like 10 years ago. I would say, if we're talking album for album, Missy's got to be the best female rapper ever, right? But I think that she's in such rare air when it comes to her catalog because she's just such a great songwriter. I think when it comes to her bar work, it's more in line with like Old Dirty and more in line with like Biz Marquee-ish and stuff like that, where it's having fun. But I don't know if she could out rap anybody that we're considering on that top 10 part of the list. You know what I mean?
Well, if we want
And
to
so
keep
it's
it
hard
about
to
people
debate her
out
in that.
rapping, because so when we keep about people out rapping, that's why I said I would have to make that argument for somebody like Missy. I would have to make that argument of somebody like Foxy. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
if we're talking about rapping ability, because there's not a lot of female rappers out bar you to death that's on this list. Everybody just were styles and had their styles in a way when you really look at it.
Well, what would you say is Missy's best verse? Because I think we could pinpoint that for some of the others.
I don't sum Missy up to being a bars rapper. I sum it
Right.
up to her just being like so creative in her approach and so creative as a songwriter and producer, and the way that she just crafts records and everything it's not to fit a mold where you try for any of those rappers on a list. Like you could find rappers that could try to emulate anybody on that list in some form or fashion. You can't find nobody who could do Missy.
No,
She's
Mad
one of
Max
them.
Super Chat says Rod Digger, Bahama D, and Mike, top 6 to 10. Listen, y'all, man, listen, I'll be biased if I could quote Rod Digger's Dirty Harriet album from beginning to end. So no, Rod Digger is personally one of my favorites. But you know, if we're being objective and we're going by criteria, Missy's personally one of my favorites. I'm just trying to be objective here. Jermaine Johnson with the super chat says, with all due respect, none of the ladies on this list have a better rap album than Dirty Harriet. I agree, 100%. I got the album in my catalog. Like I said, I quote it word for word. I mean, it's hard for me to have somebody with rhymes like, I feel the wind, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 as number 2 or 3
Have you
when
not listened to Miss? Have you never listened to Nicki's verses though? Just because she
yeah,
crafts it in a way where it sounds skillful, don't mean she's talking about shit. You know what I'm
well, that's
saying? Like
true.
I'm just gonna be honest.
Listen,
Like
you're right.
her early mixtape stuff, she was rapping. Some crew joints where it's her, Drake, and Wayne, we could say she's rapping. The Monster verse, you could say she's rapping.
Right.
Like when you look at her albums and you look at her the hit songs or whatever, it's like we can kind of make the same argument for Nicki then if that's the case. She doesn't say
Well, I
things
mean,
that's too
you said the
profound. We
monster.
seen really how that was when her and Remy was going at it, you know?
Does Missy have a monster verse?
But look, it does look all right, same for prime example. Nicki, you're supposed to be the MC, the female MC. You're the top one on the crown. And look at her diss to Meg.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like we can't use that for one and don't use that for others. It's
I
not like
agree. We can
you
we
know,
can
like
apply this to Nicki in a second. Yeah,
and
yeah,
to
we
me,
can apply this
Missy's
to
more
Nicki in a
creative than
second.
anybody on that list.
Missy, oh yeah, for sure. But again, I think that a lot of that is because of her incredible songwriting. And I think that her songwriting is what propels her somewhere else. And I think they've done the same thing with Lauren. Now, I'm going to say this about Lauren, and it is no doubt in my mind, if we're talking about in a vacuum, similar to the Andre 3000 thing, if you just hear this person rhyming and you have no body of work to go on, and you're hearing everybody on this list rhyme, and I hear Lauren rhyme, she would be the best person that I heard rhyme on this list. But this list is more than that. And what makes Lauren so difficult on lists like this is the fact that the pool of the resume of this pool isn't as vast as it is for their counterparts. But if you look at the few times that Lauren actually made a 3-verse song, like a doo-wop or a Lost Ones, these are some of the best rap records you've ever heard. You just don't have a lot of it. You know what I mean? And that's what makes it very difficult with somebody like Lauren. And it feels like, and I have this struggle with 3000. This is exactly why I didn't put together an Atlanta list for 404 Day. Because if you don't involve 3000, it looks like it's a list that is inaccurate or, doesn't have any credibility. But if you try to be objective about it, it's like that doesn't work either. Same thing with Lauren. You can't leave her off a list like this. But it's hard to be objective with somebody who has flashed in the way that she's flashed but doesn't give that to you consistently.
Yeah, I mean that's the only knock to Lauren is she doesn't have a hip hop album. Miseducation is not a hip
That's a
hop album.
huge knock. Like,
Yeah,
what?
that's a knock
Like,
that
this
she
is
doesn't
a
have a hip hop.
list about hip hop artists and catalogs.
So that's the
That's
knock.
hard.
And that's the thing. Like even my criticism of Nicki is like I don't think that she has like a real hip hop album. It's like a good mix of
Yeah.
what it is. And it's not a knock to her, it's her ability and energy that she puts into her records. I think she dumbed down her rapping ability a lot when she became the star as we know her as. Being that I listened to Nicki stuff early, but it's just like that's my knock to her. I think her biggest records are pop records, or
You're
the
right.
biggest records that she's revered for is out records she just happened to be featured on more so her solo rap records as opposed to a lot of other female rappers that may be on this list who had those solo rap records. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But
Yeah.
she does deserve to be in the top five. Nicki actually deserves to be in it, period, because she's like she is one of there's a lot of female rappers that has impact, and Nicki is one of those ones that has the impact on the younger generation. Like how Kim is to her, that's what a lot of people are to Nicki. So we can't take that away from her. But this is why I don't like these lists because I don't, you said what their criteria was, but it seems to really be everywhere and some kind of thrown on there just because whatever. Because I think on our off conversation, we mentioned Shauna. Shauna's a person that only had one album, but if we're talking about rapping ability, Shauna could rap a lot of rappers on this list under the table.
And you talk about her input on hit records like a What's Your Fantasy or, what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying, Getting Some and Stand Up. I mean, she's there. Ill Magic with the Super Chat says, I don't know, man. For me, Kim is number one, of course, but I got to put Gangsta Boo after her at number two. But that's just me. Listen, let me get my little Gangsta Boo spiel real quick. I think the Gangsta Boo doesn't get enough credit for being in a group with five other guys for extended period of time. What they did, Mystic Styles together, they did The End, they did World Domination, and they did 6661 when the smoke clears. I don't think there's any other female in hip hop who did, four albums in a group with a bunch of guys and was the standout for many of those moments. Even when you look at like, what Crime Mob did with Knuck If You Buck and Diamond and Princess and how they had their standout moments on Knuck If You Buck itself, that comes from Gangsta Boo. That comes from Gangsta Boo piercing through on her verse on Tear the Club Up. You know what I'm saying? And she laid down the foundation for a lot of what we hear. I hear Gangsta Boo all over Megan Thee Stallion style. I do. Megan's one of those people too, man. I feel like has put in a lot of work and doesn't get the level of credit that she should. I don't see by any metric how you put Cardi B ahead of Megan Thee Stallion. I don't. I mean, clearly Megan's the better
I
rapper.
do.
Commercially,
Yes.
you think Cardi should be over Megan?
Yes. And the reason I say
Why?
that, the reason why I say that is because Megan hasn't really given you a real album. Like that last album that just passed before she put out the deluxe or the part two of it, that was solid. The rest of them has been like a form of mixtape or EP. Like Cardi really gave you a great body of work for that one album. It may be that one album, but that was really a dope album, not just as a female rapper, but period. It was a good album. You know,
It
um,
had hits on it. It
Meg,
did.
Meg has hit singles. Cardi has hit singles too, and you know,
You
even
didn't think
feature.
Fever was quality though? You didn't think
You
Fever
said
was
what now?
quality? Fever for Megan.
It was okay. It has like Meg had. You know what Meg has? She has the ability to have like those records that's going to be played everywhere. She's like great as far as singles, but you know, there was a little bit of a push for Meg that wasn't there for Cardi. Cardi got there off.
Yeah.
Cardi may have had the team behind her with being in the likes of being managed under who was it that was managing Migos and all of them or whatever. And might have
I
had
don't know if she was she managed by QC technically.
I think she was managed by QC. She wasn't signed to QC, but she
Hmm.
was managed by QC. But here's the thing.
I thought that was a
Like,
Mona Scott thing. Maybe I'm just assuming because she was on Love and Hip Hop that was a Mona Scott thing.
no, because Cardi was making music before Love and Hip Hop. She had mixtapes. They may not have been taking it serious, but she had mixtapes beforehand. But I feel like Cardi has bigger solo records with just her, and she had the better album. And Meg had a lot of that industry help. Cardi did too, as far as crafting that album. But Meg had records by Beyonce already without having a debut album out. She had a record with Nicki out already. You know what I'm saying? She was like kind of set up for automatic success, even though we seen her freestyle videos beforehand. But straight out the gate, you have features by two of the biggest women artists in hip hop and R&B. Is like Cardi didn't get that same, you know, Cardi kind of carved the lane for herself. Like, and then excuse me, and
But
shit, and then was able to like parlay that into now she's able to be relevant after X amount of years of not putting out an actual body of work. She's been single, feature, but both of them are signed to majors. But the looks that Meg got early versus Cardi, it was like, yo, Meg. The first time I heard Meg, she was on a Wale record.
mm. I think one of the things that hurt Megan is this, and I've always said this, it's kind of like a big crit issue. These things that were quote unquote mixtapes should have been considered albums. You know what I'm saying? And I think when it was time for the debut album, and we're going to see this with Doechii and see how this works. When it came time for the debut album, it was underwhelming because the mixtapes were really, I mean, it wasn't even just garnering buzz, it was giving her the hit records. So now you got a whole different level of pressure where it's like, you got to damn near follow up what your first real hit was, but they're not even considering that beforehand. You know what I mean? Because Fever had joints on it.
I mean, what's the cool thing about both of them is like, both of them had movements. Nicki has a movement when she first came out. She has the barbs. And to this day, Nicki's fans are crazy. But I didn't see those same women that I was in college with still listening to Nicki. It's just like Nicki's fans didn't really grow with her to me, but she's always was able to acquire new fans. I think what resonates with people like, I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Eminem type stuff.
Yeah, it's like it's different. Like she's always acquiring new projects. I mean new fans, but like her projects were considered like mixtapes and EPs. Like I think they considered that last album they dropped around the documentary. I think that was considered her debut album. But that's the thing with Meg. The thing with the fan bases for Meg is like I think her fan base is following her. With Cardi, I think they're following her. Like that's why they're able to be ingrained and people love them so much to where they don't have to drop something and people's gonna be out there. And I seen Glow kind of building that fan base right now. You know what I'm saying? I see Glow.
Tina Snow either?
No, I'm not saying I didn't like them, but I'm saying they don't live up to what that Nicki album was to me. I think that Nicki album was crafted great. I think Meg has a lot of singles. She has a lot of things that like what people liked her for before it blew up. Like you had Big Ol' Freak, then she had, I remember the Pole Dancer record with Wale, and I remember, she's bubbling. Like people grew with Meg. You like the people that listen to her now, I see them as still being the people that resonate and grew with Meg. But I don't think any of her bodies of work match what Nicki did. I'm not Nicki, but what Cardi did with that Invasion of Privacy album.
Well, Invasion of Privacy is a big record. I will say that.
It's
but
a big
again,
album.
It's a huge album. But this is my thing, man. Like when you're not able to jump in the forefront and attempt to do it again, it's like I gotta hold that against you, man. Like it's 7 years. Like the catalog of I gotta give Megan this. I trust her on the mic because she can come with Good News, Traumatized, Megan, like she can come with albums. I don't think Cardi's gonna make another album again. I'm at that point. Like I really don't believe Cardi's ever gonna make another album.
But this shows you how dope that album is because that album's so big. it's always whatever she puts out is going to be compared to the point where Meg is not faced with that same issue. It's just like Meg just dropped, she dropped some new shit. It doesn't have to be competing with whatever great body of work came beforehand. That is the issue with Nick. I mean, with Cardi. Like that record, that album was so big. It's like, how do I even remotely get close to how big this was? And she's not. And I think once she accepts that that's not going to be the case and just focus on making another good project, she'll be fine. But when you have such a body of work like that, you kind of don't want to be subject to the sophomore jinx.
For me, I feel like, and I guess I kind of look at it in a different way, because I feel like when you do something like that that is that big and that massive, and you don't feel like you can do it again, I feel like you either got lucky or got a whole lot of help, and you're not. I hate to say it like this. No, it sounds disrespectful. I don't know if I view you as an artist like that. You know what I'm saying? We got people who've had to follow up Thriller. We got people who've had to follow up Get Rich or Die Trying, who've had to follow up Doggy Style. Like, we've had people who've had to follow up huge efforts, but them being an artist, they're like, yeah, man, I can do it again. You know, so I'll go out there and do it again. But with her, it's just I don't. She already doesn't write her own stuff. I don't think she even feels like she can make anything close to it. And again, that's okay. But I trust. I mean, we have no way of knowing this. I believe that if Megan would have made Invasion of Privacy or something close to it, she would have followed it up by now. Like, she would have followed it up. I believe the same thing
That's
with
easy
Lotto.
to say when someone doesn't have it, though. You know, and I'm not making excuses for Cardi. I'm just saying, like, when you have such a body of work, you don't know how these artists are crafting to try to come up with that sophomore album. Some people have that sophomore jinx, and it's easy to say that for Meg because she hasn't been faced with trying to compete with her last work. She's kind of been really on the safe side of everything. Everything she's been made out to look great. You know, that Tory situation kind of propelled her too. Of course, that's nothing she wished on herself or
I
whatever, but
think
that
that
even
hurt.
was parlayed into success. She got those early features. The TikTok stuff has helped her a lot. Like Cardi dropped in that in between period where social media propelled her as people liking her as an individual, but she still had to sell that music on her own. Nobody knew that Bodak Yellow was going to be as big as it was. You know what I'm saying? She didn't have a Nicki feature early on. She didn't have that Beyonce feature early on. She didn't have TikTok behind her for the dances to go along with the records. Like she's
Well,
one of
what
those
she
people
did
that
have, what she did have that the others didn't, and we talked about this earlier with Will Smith. She had television. Television was huge for her,
but
and
nobody was
again,
taking her
she did
serious musically off the social media though. Nobody was taking Cardi serious when she was on there. They loved her personality. And this is why I
exactly.
say for
And
a
she
lot of
did.
young artists today, when they love your personality, you can sell them anything. But she over delivered on that album. I don't think nobody was expecting that album to be as successful as it was. She over delivered. Let's remember the time frame. She went from being social media stripper chick, and she's not. And then her looks then wasn't the look that we see her at is now. No shade to her, but the appeal wasn't there. Whatever, they loved her personality, bro. Like that's what helped her for social. I mean, for reality TV, but they wasn't taking her music serious at that time. She was running around with DJ Self and stuff like that. She wasn't.
Bodak Yellow did a lot, and you know what I'm saying. And I think for that, and I've said this before, I think it's one of the most important hip hop songs of that decade because it gave us a superstar that really didn't deliver too much even after that. But a lot of that success was riding off of how huge that song was. Even the songs that were on Invasion of Privacy weren't as big as that record, but Invasion of Privacy was able to kind of keep that flow going. But you're right. I mean, Megan doesn't have the big records that Cardi has, but I just think from a just bar for bar and just being able to hold down songs on her own, I think that Megan's in a different class than Cardi is on that level. But again, I could be wrong, but we need more Cardi material to even really make an assessment.
I mean, the fact that it's been 7 years without an album and people are still anticipating it and want to hear it, or it's still big news when she releases a feature on somebody's stuff or a single. I mean, Go look at the numbers on her YouTube on these videos and stuff that she's releasing in between. She hasn't dropped the album in this big ass time frame. You know, I'm with
How
you. I want
much
to
of
hear a new
that is
project from
her
her.
personality, though? How much of that is her personality, and how much of that is people really wanting the music? Because, like you said, I think that if you get people to buy into who you are and what you're about and your personality, you can pretty much sell them anything. She just did a makeup a deal that she's saying it's going to be $1 billion empire. That's based on the fact that people buy into her. How much of that is her personality, and how much is that just the music that was on Invasion of Privacy?
To me, I don't think it matters because you still have to deliver. You know what I'm saying? When you have an album like that, you can't just give a subpar effort of an album because
Yeah,
that's what people are always going to compare it to. So I don't even think it matters. You know, I like both them as artists. I like Meg and I like Cardi. I actually like everybody on this list, but it's like I don't like when people use the Cardi B doesn't write thing, but will give passes to other women are on this thing that I don't do we hold women rappers to that same standard of rapping? I mean, if they write their own stuff, yeah, we give them the credit for that, but like, do we hold them to that same standard? Or you guys say, oh, Cardi B only has one album, but you guys have Lauryn Hill or whatever. She only has one album. You know, the output of female artists is the average albums you're gonna get is 2 to 3 at max. You know, it's not like Eve had a bunch of albums.
it's true. Listen,
You know,
I don't want to get it. I don't want anybody to get it confused. I love Lauren. I got her vinyl sitting right over here, man. But it's very difficult putting her on any of these all-time lists for being an MC, just rapper. If we're talking rapper list, and I was gonna say this as it pertains to Missy as well. If we're talking about overall artists, that's a different conversation. But if we're talking rapper, I gotta stay as consistent as I am with the Andre 3000 thing, and make this, more about the people who actually rap and who actually put in that rap work. And not saying Missy doesn't do that. It's similar to like when I look at Beastie Boys, right? I think I would rank Beastie Boys higher on a all-time group list than I would an all-time hip hop group list. You know what I mean? Because they did the rap thing for maybe an album or two. And you have other groups who dedicated their whole careers to rapping on albums. I think the Beastie Boys are kind of different in that light because they're just more of they did things outside of rap. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that does, and especially in Nicki's case, it makes you bigger in different ways. But when we're having a rap list, it also dilutes that too. I can't put you higher than I could put Kim, who rapped the whole time from beginning to end. You know what I mean? Like it's not fair. But if we're talking about the overall scheme, it's like who's the better overall artist, then yeah, I could possibly say Nicki could get that jump, right? But I do not hate Three Stacks. I love Three Stacks. I'm just objective. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just it. If anybody has seen the episode with me and Mickey Facts, I could quote more 3000 stuff than anybody in here. I love them, but I'm just trying to be objective here. And I love Left Eye. She doesn't belong on this list. I love
Left Eye
Moni
doesn't have
Love.
a solo
She
album
doesn't
to do.
belong on this list. I love them. You know what I'm saying? Like to put Left Eye on a list like this over a Rod Digger or something is, it's disrespectful to the work. Or Jean Grey or Bahamadia. You know what I'm saying? Another Philly woman. Shout out to Bahamadia.
So it's like, when we have, that's why I say I don't like these type of lists because I don't know how they're constructed because they can be
Justified.
going based on
Yeah.
that criteria that they're talking about. But like I said, I don't like this stuff. Oh, who doesn't write what? Because like I said, we just talk about Kim being where she is, and we know Kim didn't write her stuff for the most part, but we know what her impact was. We know what the tree of what came after that. Just like we can acknowledge the impact of a Nicki or the impact of a Cardi or impact of um uh uh um Meg, whatever. All these artists has impact. Like
Yeah.
Lauren, Lauren's impact alone was there, but like when we start getting out talking about output or whatever, a lot of these female rappers didn't really get a long list of catalog. I mean, Nicki has just about the longevity out of that ranges in the career of still being able to do it more than any of these artists. You know, Missy still, you know, does music and stuff, but the impact and stuff is just not there as it used to. But like, I don't know. Like I said, this list is kind of tricky because if they want to talk about rapping ability, then okay, there's some people that need to be moved up on the list. If you want to talk about output, then same thing. But if you want to talk about impact, well, there are some ones on there that deserve to be impactful because you can't tell me Cardi's not impactful. You can't tell me Meg's not impactful. You can't tell me Nicki's not impactful. Even Queen Latifah was impactful and MC
Yeah,
Light was impactful and Foxy. And, you know, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I don't know how they put this list together. Even like we're
yeah,
putting Left Eye on there. Do Left Eye have a solo album that you guys know the date for her to be on this list? If we want to talk about output, you know,
yeah. I mean, yeah. She. I think she technically put one out. It's on YouTube, I believe. But yeah, as far as like having notable records on there, listen, man, we know what Left Eye brings to the table. In my personal opinion, I think she was the most important piece of TLC. I think that initially, you know, I loved how Left Eye was utilized, or not even just Left Eye. The whole group was utilized on the first album, and I hate that they start phasing Left Eye out on Crazy Sexy Cool, and they turn TLC and more into an R&B group, whereas she was being utilized all over the place on the first album. Saying all that to say, she was the creativity of the group. She was the thing that made TLC totally different, made them stand out. And as far as like, you know, her spit game, we already know Left Eye can rap, but she doesn't have the individual resume. Not saying that she couldn't have, because she had the ability to do so. It just didn't happen. She doesn't have the individual resume to be on a list over Rhapsody or something. Like, that's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, we just got to be honest about that if we're gonna do lists. And I think that's what makes the
well,
list hard,
I
because
think her
nobody wants
impact.
to be honest about certain things.
Yeah, I think, you know, when they're looking at her, it's like nostalgic in its impact as well. And you know, it may sound kind of crazy, but if that is the case, I'll make an argument for her impact over Rhapsody. I don't think Rhapsody has a lot of impact in the music industry right now as a female artist. I'm gonna be totally honest with you, and it doesn't
Well,
take away
from a
from her talent.
mainstream
Saying that, I just
standpoint,
don't
I
think
don't
she has
think
impact.
so. I think from a mainstream standpoint, I don't think so. But again, she's made albums like Eve. She's got bodies of work that, I mean, we got to give credence and credit to.
I mean, I'm not taking
And
that away from her. I'm not even saying the music is bad or the output or anything. I'm just saying I don't think Rhapsody's impact is the reason why people are looking at her in that way. I don't think she has impact. You
you
know,
don't think
like
she impacts like a Shay Noir or something?
no, I don't think neither of them have the impact. And
But
I
I
think
mean,
that's the reason why they don't get the credit.
You don't think Shay Noir is influenced by Rhapsody though? Is what I mean.
Possibly, but
Yeah,
I don't know much about Shay Nayor and when she came out compared to Rhapsody to even say that. But
yeah.
they're in the same lane. I don't think neither of them have the impact of these artists, and that's why they don't get the nods that they get. You know, like
Sierra Wax doesn't have any.
we know
I
that
didn't.
some of these top artists have like, you know, babies of them. You know, there's fruit. Even Trina being up on that list, she's not the most lyrical, but we know Trina has a bunch of babies under her. We know Lil Kim
Yeah.
has a bunch of babies of her. Nicki has a bunch of babies. Even Cardi has babies under her at this point. Like, there's impact, there's imagery, there's stuff that they did, iconic verses. You know, like, or moments where I don't see where in any category how Rhapsody and Shay Noir has that impact. And it doesn't take away from their rapping ability or their bodies of work or their songs, because they're both dope. But I think that's
I
where
think
Rhapsody
Rhapsody.
impact.
I think Rhapsody adds a level of balance to a list like this. And I will say this. I'm just going to be honest. I I've been doing this for a minute, and I've always heard Rhapsody stuff. Jean Grey too. Shout out to her. And I always thought Rhapsody was dope when she was working at Ninth Wonder Heavy and everything. But these mainstream platforms didn't start talking about Rhapsody in that way until she was having dealings with Rock Nation. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes when you're that alternative, if you will, you have some of these mainstream outlets that try to exploit that alternative so that they can look like they're more hip than they actually are. And I feel like Rhapsody gets used in that way a lot. Like I remember
Yeah.
as soon as she did her deal with Rock Nation or whatever, then Charlemagne started talking about her on the Breakfast Club. Now, granted,
He's
Charlemagne's
been a
from the
good supporter of her though throughout the
I know
years.
he has, but I'm just saying he's from the Carolinas. He's probably heard of her for a long time, like I have. But now that she's, doing major dealings in that way, then it's safe to start talking about her like you should have been talking about her anyway.
I
You
don't
know what I
know,
mean?
man. Because as much as I go against a lot of stuff for Charlemagne, I feel like he was one of the early ones that really talked about Rhapsody. He did the same thing for Tink. You know what I'm saying? Like he really like told
Think
people like
nice.
Tink and Rhapsody a lot. He's always shouting them out, even to this day when they release new stuff. But
Where's Tierra Wax impact?
that I don't listen to her, but I know like my sister and them like they she's listening to
Okay.
Tierra Whack or whatever. Like those are concerts where I don't really know Tierra Whack like that. But other than that, I think every artist on this list is good. I like every female artist on this list. There's some numbers that should be on there, or a couple people who I could say could be taken off. But I really like all the female rappers on here. But like I said, to have Lauren on there is like I understand her impact, but Lauren hasn't given us a solo rap album. To have Left Eye on there, she haven't given us a solo rap album. I think Dochi's too early to go on there. I think Tierra Whack is too early to be on there. I feel like if you're gonna do things like certain individuals be on there, then throw Shauna on there.
Yeah. I mean,
Throw
Left Eye never
Mario
even
on
gave
there.
us a
You know what
solo
I'm
rap
saying?
song. There was no, I mean, outside of the solo albums that, didn't, see the light of day, unfortunately. But yeah, we never got that to even be able to assess it. Her feature game's crazy, though. I always felt like she had the best verse on Ladies Night. Um,
Over the Brat? I don't know.
Back in the day, I used to think it was the Brat, but now I listen with different ears. I'm like, you know what? She actually had the best verse on this song.
Her verse is easier to recite versus the
Yeah.
Brat, but I think the Brat actually had the best verse on there.
Brad went in on there. I used to think
Yes,
that,
he
but
did.
yeah, now listening to it, I'm like, you know what? She really killed this. The Donnell Jones feature was crazy.
I mean,
What's
shoot,
up?
we talked about Will Smith. She had that album, that first solo album, Will Smith. She was on that album. She had a feature on there, I believe. Left Eye.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Left Eye was dope, but yeah, I just it's hard to justify how she makes it on a list like this. Now, I'm not a huge Trina fan, and I know you're from Florida and everything.
I
I
know it.
always thought that, Trina's bars was weak, but her impact is there, and I understand why she's on a list like this. I
Mhm.
think that Doja Cat could be higher. I'm just saying. I think Doja Cat's one of those people. She's one of those people that gets penalized for success as well. She's a great songwriter. She's
Well, I
on
don't think it's penalized for success. I
the
think it's about the stuff that she did outside of hip hop, like the
yeah.
controversy with her or whatever. But I actually think Doja's dope. I really do.
She's dope. She's a hit maker. She can actually rhyme for real.
Yeah,
It's like you can hear when somebody can really rhyme. And when I hear Doja Cat rhyme, I'm like, yo. But aside from the antics and whatever, she can actually rhyme.
You
She
know who I
really
do
does.
like?
If you want to talk about from a skill set standpoint, if there's a comparison here, I could see a Left Eye Doja Cat comparison as far as like rapping ability. But the difference is Doja Cat's been able to translate those into, actual rap songs where we could see, what that person's able to bring to the table as a solo artist. And yes, she is a pop star, but she's a pop star because she's a great songwriter. Jermaine Johnson with the super chat says Rhapsody doesn't have industry babies because very few MCs can do what she does. She's not a copy and paste repeat artist. Now,
I
do
don't think it has nothing to do with her rapping how she's rapping. I think it just has everything to do with like, it's just where we are in music right now and the type of messaging. And then Rhapsody's sort of older too in hip hop, so she's not doing what these budding young female rappers are doing or selling sets or whatever. So it's like it's not being pushed to the forefront. I just think it just is what it is, bro. But I just don't think that she has the records that resonates or grab people, or I don't think that she has the impact that people would like her to have. It doesn't take away from it, from her doing what she's doing, it's just no impact there. You know who I do like that they have on this list though, who I don't feel like people put in the conversation, but I like that they have Moni Love on there. You know, the stuff with her native tongues and what she worked
I
with
love
Queen Latifah,
Moni.
whatever. I love Moni being on this list. I
I
appreciate Moni
love
Love.
Moni, but I don't know if she should be on this list if Shauna and Rod Digger and those
I think
people
Moni
are.
Love deserves to be on the list.
Moni's nice, and she's on Ladies First with
Mhm.
Queen. I think she stole the show on there. Obviously, on Buddy remix, incredible. Moni in the middle, she's done that. I'm glad that they gave Moni her flowers. I'm not mad at her being on here. I wouldn't have put her on here, and that's
I would
crazy
have.
because I always grew up loving Moni Love. I
I
think
would have put her on
it's just
there.
more of a longevity conversation.
But like I
In my,
said, that same argument can be made for a lot of other artists that's on this
you're right.
list. Because it's not like I said, Nicki is an exception. The fact that Cardi has an album 7 years going and she's still relevant, like, a lot of these artists are not female artists, didn't really have the chance to really have legit long careers. It was kind of like in with the new, out with the old, for
Should
a
Remy
lot of
Ma
them.
be on this list so
You say
high?
who?
Should Remy Ma be on this list so high?
No, and I think she's one of those
I don't
people
think
that get
this.
like, I think she's one of the people that get that, oh, I could rap, kind of praise. Because I don't think, again, Remy has the album quality. I mean, she was out for a long period of time. We could recognize what she did on her first, that only album she had. She had joints off there. You know what I'm saying? But it's like she didn't have the output and stuff like that to where I don't think she deserves to be that high on the list, if on the list, and that's not knocking Remy. Is just like, what if we were to have a versus,
What criteria?
what does Remy give us?
What song is it that we could really pinpoint? At least with Moni Love, we can go Moni in the middle, right? I mean, are the stuff with Remy we're gonna go lean back, which is Terror
No, I
Squad was kind
mean,
of a song,
she
but
had conceded. She had conceded. She had So Good with Neo. She had she had a couple records. I mean, and she had a couple records when she came back. She had the record with Kim, which was fire. Uh,
these aren't
but
memorable. At least not for me. I mean, maybe I'm tripping. I mean, I see Mia X is in the chat, and well, not Mia X is in the chat, but people are saying Mia X in the chat. Mia X should be easily above all of the people that we're just sitting here questioning. I think Mia X should be over Remy.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think Mia
yeah.
X
I
should be
agree.
over Left Eye, like Moni.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they got Lady of Rage in here. I think that's dope.
I think she still could spit.
But the fact that Dolce, Tierra Whack, they
Mm-hmm.
get considered over Mia X lets me know that even if they had a deliberating short list in their meeting, Mia X couldn't even been considered. You know what I'm saying? Like that's I don't know.
Well, Mia X even had albums though. We can say
Yeah,
that. You know what I'm saying?
that's what I'm saying. Like
Like
I don't think they considered Mia X because of the people they got. I mean, how you got Glorilla over Mia X? Like,
I mean, Mia X have more output than Remy.
yeah, Mia X deserves to be over Remy. And
Like
I honestly
Remy
could
has
say
some.
that Mia X is nicer than Remy in
Remy
many facts.
has some like memorable verses, like guest verses. Her verse on Lean Back, her verse on the Annie Up remix. With MOP.
Give me Bout It, man. Mia X is on
Yeah.
Bout It. I'm just
But
saying. That could be some East Coast bias there, maybe. I don't know.
yeah,
Um, but again, I'm glad Lady of Rage was considered because Lady of Rage is still nice. Like she was
exactly.
spitting on that
She
Dog
is.
Pound album and everything.
She went in
I
on the dog.
understand Salt and Pepper being on here as a collective, which is interesting. I don't know. I think Eve could actually be higher.
Yeah,
I,
Eve deserves to be up there.
yeah, Eve could
Her three
actually be
albums, her
higher.
three her 3 albums, and what she did on the Rough Riders compilation.
Oh yeah. What
Eve deserves to
China?
be up.
Yeah. Her first album was that's one of the better, female rap solo albums, in my personal opinion.
Eve was
Uh,
dope.
yeah, before what was the name of that album? It was
Let There Be Eve.
Let There Be Eve. That's it. I knew it was a play
I
on
think that was it. Yeah,
yeah,
and then
it's
she had
something like that.
Scorpion, and I forgot what the
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that album was tough, man. It had Philly Philly with Beanie Siegel. You know what I'm saying? It had the Scenario 99 on there. Fire. First time I heard Eve was on that Rough Riders Anthem remix, and I thought it was Charlie Baltimore. And I was like, yo, Charlie Baltimore is snapping. And that was Eve.
It was easy.
That's
But
funny. Like when I first heard Mace, I don't know why, because I never heard Mace before on the Only You remix, 112. I thought it was Lil C's, because I guess I didn't know who else it could have been. But I was like, yo, Lil C's snapping. But it wasn't Lil C's.
yeah, I mean, ultimately, man, like I hate lists. I do like how it makes people go back and revisit some artists' music, but like especially with these female rappers, I don't like when we have to start comparing them against each other, because I feel like every single one of them that's on this list brought something new and fresh during their era.
For sure.
Like what MC Light did, what Queen Latifah even did, what even if we want to take Lauryn Hill off or whatever, her impact still is there for people like a Doechii or people like a Rhapsody or whatnot. Like she still had impact, or like some of these artists still have some impact, whether it's within the music or outside the music, what they push. I like that they came up with a list for it, but it's like it's always, when you have these lists and the criteria everywhere, it's always gonna cause some controversy around who's number one or who's in the top five or whatever. But I'm glad the females are getting recognition, but it's just like I don't know. I can't stand lists, bro.
But that's what it's meant to do, right? You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, I will say this. I will give this to Lauren. I'll always give this to Lauren all day, every day. When you pull out records like, Doo Wop and Lost One, you're gonna be very hard pressed to find a lot of people in hip hop that have two songs better than those, like rap
Yeah,
songs. Those are
yeah.
two of the best rap songs ever made. I even got Doo Wop as a top 50 hip hop song all time. So I mean,
I can put it on there too. I agree.
it's an incredible record from start to finish, man. But yeah, I mean, maybe we need to do our own list. But see, the hard part is when it comes to a list like this, you got to make the criteria stick. And when you make the criteria stick, the list doesn't look like you want it to look. You know what I'm saying? And I
Yeah,
think that the
it's not.
independents, the mixtapes versus albums versus, just frequency of how often people come out, it makes it very difficult. And some people will be like, well, shit, Say Noir comes out with 3 albums a year. You know what I'm saying? And it just gets very sticky in that way. So,
Yeah. Right.
did anybody go to Dreamville Fest? What are you hearing about Dreamville Fest? And how come we still ain't got no J.Cole out?
It's not like it's a long wait. You know what I'm saying? I guess
Uh,
it's because he announced that he was gonna come with the fall off. And it was so anticipated before the beef that everybody's anticipating. But it's not really a long wait. Let's think about it. Might Delete Later just dropped literally around the same time frame last year. I think
it
it dropped
literally celebrated a
April 4th,
year 2
2020.
days ago, I think. Something like that.
Yeah. So Might
Yeah.
Delete Later literally dropped. Think about where we were in hip hop around this time frame. You know what I'm saying? Might Delete Later dropped April 4th around this time frame. So around this time last year, Not Like Us was the hottest song still. It was the beginning
And
of
it
the
still
hottest
is,
song.
right?
You know what I'm saying? It's funny that we're still talking about this and it's been a year later, but it's not like we're not really waiting for like a long time for this album. I think it's just as much as people like to say, "Oh, he's watching somebody checking for it." I think people are still anticipating it, which is
Yeah.
funny. I think that's just internet talk, because Dreamville people still showed up in those record numbers. It still was successful. People are still looking to see what he's going to talk about and do next, and there was no controversy. There was nothing that came from this. It was only honored for the music, and I have to respect it. Like the clip that I
Yeah.
see floating around from the Dreamville is when he brought out Erykah Badu to perform the record from Friday Night Lights. I see that on his set he performed like a lot of his older songs, like he did Grown Simba. He did a lot of those old records and everything. So yeah, I think he kept it more so to the light of, last year everybody talked about Dreamville Fest because he backed out of it. And it's never really controversy surrounding Cole or surrounding this festival. This festival has been around for some time now, and I'm just like, he just delivered on giving a good festival. I've seen some things. I've seen JID. You know, he previewed some music that is coming from the album with him and Metro Boomin. He didn't put a date on it, but
Highly anticipated.
that's anticipated. I see with a Hot Boys reunion. Actually, Wayne looked healthy. I'm not gonna lie. You know, he looked a little bit healthier with me seeing him on that stage with the Hot Boys from what I seen. And you know, he got his album coming June 6th, you know, the Carter 6th. So that's dropping. You know, we got JID said he got the joint dropping with Metro Boomin. Good, cool to see Ludacris on that stage. You know, to see Ludacris came out and performed. To see Tim's come out there, Coco Jones, you know. But yeah, I wasn't hearing a lot of chatter as far as like big moments and icon moments of it, but I think it wasn't about that. And I think they just did a good job of just putting on just a good festival. And even at the end, he said that, you know, they're gonna rebrand it. He said it's a lot. He said he ain't gonna lie, it's a lot doing this festival, and I'm pretty sure it is. It's a lot that goes into doing a festival and them booking people and all that. And he was just like, it'll be back, same place, you know, but it'll be under a different name. And I'm pretty sure, you know, he'll have some involvement in it, but he's kind of like putting the reins to somebody else to keep it going. But it's gonna be, you know, we're still gonna get Dreamville, just gonna be under a different name, and who knows what else is going to change with it. But it looks like it was just a successful, all around, overall good festival that I didn't see nobody complain about. But it wasn't driven off controversy or big moments of what can you get with a headline and talk about. And I guess that's why you don't really hear like these platforms or podcasts talking about it today, post everything, you know, because
Yeah.
there was no
Thumbs up
controversy
in
in
the chat, everybody.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thumbs up in the chat, man. I mean, does it sound like that, you know, to some degree that, you know, Cole is like, I won't say tired of it, but just, you know, just want to be able to do something else. And I mean, I'm sure that's a natural thought process, you know, at this stage in your career, at this stage in life, where it's like being that whole hunt to be the greatest rapper or be the best or run your era and all that. I'm sure that can get tiring, and it can come across as, I don't want to say immature, but it could come across as like, you know what, I'm just not on that at this stage in life. Because I mean, Cole's 40. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure that a lot of those things that people want to be at the forefront of his mind probably isn't at the forefront of his mind like it would have been 10 years ago.
Exactly.
And
And you know,
I think that quote unquote battle and the beef, it probably reared his head and made him realize that none of this stuff really matters like that.
that and then, well, I think that's where people are conflicted with Cole and they are frustrated with Cole because Cole has a lot of records. He's a little braggadocious. You know what I'm saying? He's always talking about what rappers he'll bury and kill and all that stuff. But like they see him backing out of the beef, and that's what they hold against him. And I think it's something they hold against Cole. But on the flip side, I think people actually need to realize if you really put Cole against a lot of these MCs, Cole will murder them. And I think that's something that people know as well. And that's why they want to see Cole go against people so bad. But I think that's the knock on him. You know what I'm saying? I really think that's the knock that he backed out, you know, obviously. Honestly, if I don't think it would have did anything for him if he would have got involved in that and went against Kendrick, because I don't see it turning into anything of, you know, worth talking about. We probably got some good records, but I just don't think because there wasn't no real smoke there, it wouldn't have been like how we thought it would have been. I really don't think so. But
What
I
are some
don't.
of these guys' personal lives, right? And you know,
Yeah,
one wouldn't want to interrupt their personal lives just for our entertainment. You know what I mean? Like, all jokes aside, I know I've given my commentary on, you know, the whole Cole thing, but I do think that you have to have that in you to want to battle to that level, right? It's kind of like, you know, boxing. You have to be you have to be wired a different kind of way to want to get in the ring and not just defend yourself, but want to knock that other person's head off. Like, you have to be wired for that. And I think that battle rapping is a similar thing. Whether you can turn it on, turn it off, or whatever, I think that's one of those things that you have to really want to do. And I mean, as we see, Kendrick's wired in that way. But even people like Lupe Fiasco that you might not think are wired that way, they are wired that way.
Yeah.
Nas, like they have that in them where it's like, no, I can turn that on. And I think for Cole, that's just not what he wants to do with his art. That's not what he wants to do with his music. And like you said, from from just in a vacuum, you could hear him rap and say, hey, he could out rap this person. He could probably take out this person or whatever. But you have to have that kind of mentality. I mean, there's rappers who aren't that skilled that could actually turn on that battle mentality and go in because they're just wired in that way. And maybe he's just not, and that's cool. And I think it's cool that he stayed true to himself even in this situation and did, what he did. I know that a lot of people were let down that wanted to see him engage in the battle with Kendrick because they've had individual debates saying who was better, and many of them thought Cole was better than Kendrick, and this was the time to prove that, and this was the payoff. But it didn't happen like that. I just hate that he stuck his neck out there with the record in the first place, and I'm sure, and he said that last year when he was on stage. It sounds like he wish he could have taken that back. It didn't do it.
Yeah, and I feel like Cole is one of the most lyrically inclined rappers of this generation as well. Probably one of the best lyricists out of the three, to be honest with you. I think Kendrick has a skill. I think Cole, just as a rapper, is just so much, smoother in delivery and smoother in approach and rapping ability. And I feel like it just got polished and more polished over time. You
Yeah,
know, but I really think Cole is like just in his own bubble in his own world doing what he want to do. And what he's did with Dreamville has been great. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to attend any. And every year I've seen it's been a success. It's been love. It's been like damn near
yeah.
like a what they call it, like a family reunion. You know what I'm saying? Is what they call it being out there. I just hasn't been able to attend, man. That's one of those things I really wish I would have been able to go to. But like I said, I'm hearing nothing but I don't hear no complaints about this Dreamville Fest, and I actually think he's really gonna deliver on this next album.
I
You
think
know,
so too. All
I
jokes
really
aside,
do.
I think so too. I think that Cole is one of those MCs that I think he does better without all the fanfare and the hoopla, where he can just sit there and focus on his craft and focus on what he wants to focus on and make the album that he wants to make. I think that, and I've done this too. I've put criteria and standards on him that might be unfair based on what his counterpart Kendrick has made, and the way that Kendrick makes albums, his album making process is drastically different than J. Cole's album making process. I mean, we did a whole deep dive on To Pimp a Butterfly and how intentional that Kendrick is about so many things from track to track and themes and the musicality and all of that. I think that their approaches is different and their personnel is extremely different too. Like the cast of talented musicians that's on To Pimp a Butterfly is insane. You know what I'm saying? The musicians, the instrumentalists, many of the background people. And I think that Cole doesn't make his music from a collective standpoint in that way where he has everybody in the room. Or at least it doesn't feel like he does, and you're going to
Yeah,
get a whole different product in that way. And for many people, they rather get that real, raw, vulnerable artist where it's just him in the track as opposed to a huge, production. And some people prefer the huge production. Me personally, sometimes I prefer the huge production. So, but again, I shouldn't put that standard on J. Cole. He should be able to make the album that he wants to make, and as long as the product is great, we just roll with it from there.
yeah. I mean, I have no doubt that he's gonna deliver a masterpiece of an album. I really think it's gonna be a good album. Cole doesn't really make bad albums, despite what some people may say in the chat. I actually think that he hasn't made a bad album. I think he's getting better with time. His features has proved that. I think Cole, yeah, is probably the best one out of the three as far as lyrical ability throughout time. I really feel like he really got better. And I'm actually glad now we're looking at it with these eyes from a year later, is that he didn't get involved with that BS, because now I feel like, you're always going to conjoin Kendrick and Cole at the hip, but I feel like it kind of makes people look at Kendrick's catalog as if, like, the casual fans who have opinions are just gonna chalk Kendrick up to this beef, and he has bodies of work that you really can go revisit. And just like Drake, I don't think he should be chalked up to just this beef either, when he has bodies of work that could be up there and in the conversation as well. So I don't think so as more of a classic hip hop stuff, but he has good albums. He has some good early albums. I think Nothing Was the Same was great. I think Take Care was dope. I felt like If You're Reading This Too Late was dope. I feel like the joint with Future is dope. But I've always said my thing with Drake has been the regurgitation and repeat of the same music, and kind of like latching on to the algorithm of what's the younger crowd is like. And I don't feel like he's grown with his music as far as subject and content. And that's where Drake lost me, is like his music started to get younger and younger, as opposed to it getting a little bit more mature and a little bit more, but I see what his thing is. It's the hits. And I think, like, when it comes to hit ability, nobody could do it just as good as him. I feel like Cole is a different thing. I feel like when he's in album mode, or the themes of the albums and what he's talking about is so like in tune with it, that if you're not living it, or if you haven't came across it yet, you may haven't got there. And I feel like once you do, or if you do experience it, the albums hit you a little bit more, because there's content in those albums that I feel like is very good. I feel like even with KOD, if you go back and listen to KOD now, you'll appreciate KOD. I feel
Yeah, I
like
don't feel like J. Cole actually approaches music from a standpoint that I'm going to reach the massive populace with this music. I think he's just happened to be a massively popular artist who
it's
has
so good.
gained fans like one fan at a time. Um, you know, Speaking of that whole situation, I'm sure you heard the news that Drake is asking the judge for to see Kendrick Lamar's contract, and the judge has agreed for him to do so. What do you think is actually going to come of that? You think that there's going to come a record that's going to come of that? You think that there's anything to be exposed in this situation, or what's the significance?
I don't know where it's going. I mean, I know it was a big deal. They say, oh, you can look at the deal. But I mean, when you have a discovery process, I mean, each side gets to look into stuff for their argument or whatever. So it's sharing information on both sides. I think people ran with it because they're like, oh, Drake could see what the record deal with Kendrick looks like, whatever. Like, I don't I don't see what the big deal is about or whatever. I mean, it is invasive as a process, but when you have this type of deal, that discovery process is they're looking into whatever is requested on either side. But I don't know how it's gonna go. I
What
seen
would
that
be
he
the point?
dropped.
What would be the point exactly?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. I see
Right.
that one of his things were dropped, like something in a suit, like his claims of bodying and stuff like that. I see that was dropped in a suit. But the initial stuff I think still stands. I don't know where it's gonna go with. Honestly, it's corny to me. I mean, Drake stuff is kind of building up right now with the Nokia record and the video or whatever. That's one of the songs on the album that I actually thought that was going to be probably the most successful one outside of the Give Me a Hug record. But other than that, it's just like it. I don't know, man. Just that whole ordeal. I'm glad that we're over. Like I said, it's a year later, and this is just still the focal of a lot of people's conversations, and just like people move on already. Like I said, Drake lost me a long time ago as far as output and his content, but I do have to give it credit that he has the ability to make hits. Like, one thing I could always count that he could be able to do is create hits. And I'm looking forward to, if these guys want to continue making music, whatever that happens from here is cool. But like, I've been off checking for new Drake records, just like I've been off checking for new Kanye records. It's just like I don't care to see what they have to talk about at this moment if it's not. Well, I'll even throw Drake some bell, and I'll give him a listen if it's something I feel that could possibly be compelling or whatever. But Kanye, he's never gonna get a new listen out of me.
Wait
You
a
know,
minute, wait. And that's based on what exactly?
it's being based on just like the antics has been bigger than the music for Kanye. You know, like I said, I the last album in fully that I listened to try to digest was Donda, and I feel like he messed Donda up with the changing of track lists or whatever. But the last album that I actually enjoyed from Kanye was Life of Pablo.
Mm.
And I'm kind of off Kanye, bro. There's nothing that he could bring me that I'm checking for at this point. I don't care. I don't the antics, all the stuff is corny, bro. It's like there's nothing,
Well,
there's
all
nothing
right.
that
I want to
Kanye
I
can
want to
do
go
that
back because
brings me back to listen to him.
I did go back and listen to the interview and the academic interview, and I do feel like academic, like you said, handled it like a blogger or like a blog in itself. But I do feel like he did give him some pushback on certain things. It was just done in um, such a casual way, where like he's answering the phone during the interview and all of this stuff. And I do think that many of the people, many of the media were able to actually take some of the clips and kind of run with them. But again, it doesn't help you that you're wearing a KKK outfit, in the midst of this interview. I think that could have been done without, in my personal opinion. But where he's coming from with some of the stuff that he was saying, it was very direct. Um, but I don't feel like, especially for some of his peers, I don't feel like it was done in quote unquote malice or in shock value ways. I think he really feels like this. You know what I'm saying? I think he feels like he's on an island on his own, and he's willing to say things that his peers won't or can't. But again, you can't really get mad at people for that either. You know what I'm saying? You kind of just got to be able to speak your truth and just understand that, okay, well, everybody else not willing to just, jump off this ledge like I am. That's kind of what I got from the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? It could have been done way better all around. And I think that Kanye is one of those people who has mastered the ability to manipulate the media, and he knows what things they're going to pull from, what they're going to run with, and how they're going to run with them. But he continues to play into it.
I I don't buy into that bullshit.
Yeah.
Out of out of all that Kanye says, 80% of it will be bullshit. He'll give you 20% that you'll be like, I can see where he's coming from. It doesn't negate from the fact that the bulk of what he says is bullshit. Like Kanye has a way of doing things and upsetting people and offending people, and then going back and throwing you something that kind of would play on your heartstrings a little bit. Like I don't give a damn that you regret having kids with Kim Kardashian. You have four of them. When did you now just come to the realization that that's probably the person you shouldn't have kids with? That's a you
Well,
problem. I
see,
don't care about
that statement came out of, I forgot how it came up, but it was academic asking him, if he was a hypocrite because you've had kids with yada yada. And he was like, well, I shouldn't have done that either. You know what I mean? And it's like, it kind of came as a reaction to a question about what you've done when you're sitting here talking about what somebody else has done. So there was pushback there, and it
yeah,
was,
I don't
a
buy the
response.
Kanye stuff, man. Like I
Because
don't
my
buy the
thing
Kanye.
is, overall, what's the resolve, right? And again, it gets people talking, but outside of that part of it, I just hate that someone so talented and who used to be so relatable to so many people has become so alienated from that base that made him who he is. And then
You
I
know,
feel like he spoke for him.
Somebody said this recently in the interview. I don't know. I don't know if it was Damon Wayans. I don't know who it was. It was in a recent interview, and they said like Kanye. They say you have to look at Kanye like you would look at a homeless person on the street that's yelling crazy stuff to you. Like, does it really bother you? Does it make you mad, or you just like ignore it? That's how I look at Kanye. He's the crazy guy that's yelling out whatever. That's exactly how I look at him. Like I can care less about what he's saying. I don't care about Kanye's problems. I really don't. And therefore, if the music is not even good, then it gives me less of a reason to give a damn about that too. Like I really don't care about what Kanye says, what's going on in Kanye world, whatever. I don't idolize this guy to enough where I can't be objective and say, hey, this is bullshit what he's doing. It's bullshit music. It's bullshit what he's saying. Like at least if he was giving us some half decent music, I could be like, okay, well at least the music is good. The music is not good. Like I don't know what more people want me to say. I'm not checking for Kanye, bro. I'm technically not even checking for Drake, but if we want to talk about the output in these last few years of who has a better music, I have to give it to Drake. Even with the lawsuit stuff that's going on, with the
Hmm.
output of music, Drake has put up the better music projects than Kanye in these last efforts. You know, so it's like I'm just not on. I'm not on the Drake. I mean, I'm not on the to Ye, man. I'm really not checking for what he has to say or talk about.
That's unfortunate. And that was Damon Wayans that said that. I mean, that's unfortunate that someone who's been, so open and honest in their music has gotten people to the point where, if you're not presenting that level of open honestness in your music, then people don't want to hear anything you got to say. I do feel like when it comes to social media interviews and things of that nature, it has been a downfall for many artists. I think the Ti went down that path as well. I don't think people start disliking Ti until he got super vocal on social media and start saying things that people are like, "Huh? What?" And I think Kanye's gone down that path as well.
No, I can't even compare to both because it's not
Oh
like
no,
T
they're
is
not the
saying
same.
things that are intentionally malicious.
Right,
You know,
right.
Kanye has said things that are intentionally malicious.
No, you're right.
It's documented. That
And
stuff is on Twitter and
there's
stuff
no
like that.
excuse for that,
You know,
especially
just
going
because
to
somebody will
the
say some dumb shit or whatever, and we can't hold them to just that if the intention wasn't even that. Like Kanye has went out his way to intentionally be offensive.
Yeah, you're right. And when you go out there and intentionally be offensive, especially to children and things like that, it's like, okay, well, yeah, you do kind of have to take this person's message as just like Damon Wayne said. And I can see how people could get to that point. But it's unfortunate because some of the things that he said in that interview, I understood in context where in his world, where they make sense. And it's like, okay, well, people are scared and this and that. And it's like, okay, but what's the solution? And these are all the problems. These are all the problems. These are whatever, whatever. Well, what do we or even you in such a influential position do about it? You want to reconstruct the music industry if that's an issue. Do you
He
have
never
the
has a resolution. That's the thing. It's
Yeah,
never a resolution. Kanye is very self-serving. He plays on this stuff. It'll get you guys a wrap up and buy the albums, and then he'll disappear until his next time to go on his next controversy cycle. It's always about when you want to sell music or when you want to sell product. It's never due to like him really fighting for a real cause. It's always when you think about anything,
it's
where's
kind
something
of like a
ever
politician, right? It's kind of
yeah,
like
it's
a
like
politician where it's like when it's not election season, you never see him. All these things going on in the world. Okay, where's the fight? Where's the fight? But then when it's election time, hey, I'm everywhere. And you're right. I mean, yeah, when it's time for music, it's like, okay, well, here are the problems of the world, guys.
yeah, it's like he'll conjure up some stuff to get you on the side, and then he goes on his little rant that people, oh, he's crazy and all this stuff, and then he drops the stuff, doubles down or whatever, and when he's done on selling that product or coming with something new, the only reason he's still on it now is because he has another album coming, after this Bully album. So it's like, even that interview, bro, that was a terrible interview for my output. Like I said this in the previous show. I'm not really mad at Act because he did what a person that I know him to be as far as media to do. I didn't see him that going any different from how it went. But from me looking at it with interviewer eyes, I wouldn't have went for that shit. There was no pushback. There was no controlling of
You don't
your
feel like there was
interview.
pushback?
No, there
I
was no
felt like
pushback. You just like Kanye talk. There was no pushback for real. Come on, man. If that's pushback, then okay.
Well, I mean, look,
If that's what
when you
people's
have
level,
a subject like that, you kind of, just let them go,
you
and
just let
that's a
him talk.
style
That's what I'm saying.
to it.
I'm not mad at what Act did at all because he did exactly what I would see him do uh, in that period. Knowing like if you ever look at his media, his content, you ever see what he do. I didn't expect nothing any different from that. But like that's not a good interview to me. It was just like honestly, you could take Act out of that whole equation. It's just another Kanye rant. That's really
Okay.
what it is. So it's like I can care less. I really don't. Like I hate talking about Kanye at this point. Just like I hate talking about just like I hate talking about anything like beef wise with Drake or Kendrick or certain
Yeah.
lists. Like I
Yeah.
don't I really don't care what Kanye has to say at this point, man. He's not somebody I check for. He's not somebody I'm looking to see what he's doing to move the culture. Um I don't care.
Well, J.Cole does have an album coming out. What does that rollout look like? And I mean, since Dreamville is not a part of that rollout, what does that look like? A surprise album on like, any given Friday, or do we get some sort of lead into this, a feature lead in? Like what does the fall off look like?
Um I think it's gonna be a masterpiece, man. I don't think it needs too much hype.
Yeah.
I think the people that even say they're off cold, they're still going to check for it
Well, yeah. I don't think
because
that
that
there's
stuff is
anybody
internet
who's
talk.
not
Like I
gonna
said,
check.
there's a difference. Yeah, there's a difference between internet talk and people that's really going to listen to the music. Like if you listen to the internet, they'll tell you who they think is in, is out, who's popping, who's not for real. But the streets say different. You know what I'm saying?
I
Like
feel like
internet talk.
I feel like if he drops a masterpiece or even a quality, offering with the fall off, that will dead a lot of, if not all of this Drake and Kendrick talk that's still going on the internet. I think that is, because again, when we talk about big three in this era, we know who we're talking about here. And if Cole is the one that actually delivers the masterpiece of the big three of all of this quote unquote controversy, I think that silences all of the nonsense and gets people focusing on the music again.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's just going to deliver a great project. I don't see anything about this being like I said. Cole's music gets better with time for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I really feel like his pen is more polished. His delivery, him as an artist, is just more polished. I don't see anything bad coming from this album at all. I think he's gonna deliver. So I'm with it. I'm listening to it. I'm
I'm
checking
looking
for it.
forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to it because we need that. I think hip hop continuously needs those big blockbuster efforts, and Cole's one of those rare situations where you can get a blockbuster effort, if you will, but mixed with, what I'm saying, an underground feel in a sense. You know what I'm saying? It gives you like a core hip hop feel from a very popular artist that never really divvied away from, what I'm saying, the core principles of this hip hop thing. Exhibit's coming with a new album too.
Yes,
Uh,
Exhibit's dropping May 16th.
mm, right around the corner. Um, Listen, man, Exhibit was one of my favorites back in the day, and I was so happy when him and Dr. Dre and all of them connected. But it was that moment on "Bitch Please" on Snoop's Top Dog album, No Limit Records, and that was the song. In my personal opinion, I've always said this, that song is what brought Dr. Dre and the West Coast back in that period. And Exhibit had a lot to do with that. Snoop had a lot to do with that. Nate Dogg, Dr. Dre. It gave you that feel. And I was ecstatic to hear Exhibit connecting with Snoop and Dre. And I've been listening to Exhibit from Paparazzi. What you see is what you get now.
We'll see
And
what you get.
yeah,
Fire.
and he came out there on Bitch Please and killed it. You don't want a hot box with me. I swing hard liquor going down in the second round, all hell to underground. Like he never took in that time period, you could hear how hungry Exhibit was, and he understood the moment, and he was always spitting.
Yeah,
He didn't
Exhibit
take
was killing
he
shit.
didn't take bars off.
I mean, he killed Bitch Please too on the Marshall Mathers LP. You know, on
Yeah,
Eminem's. You know what I'm saying? One of my favorite verses from Xzbit was actually my favorite video from Xzbit is "What You See Is What You Get." I think that
That's one of the
video
best hip hop videos
is
of all
amazing.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think one of my favorite verses from Xzbit was on 2001. It was "What's the Difference."
Yeah, I think he has the best verse on that song.
Yeah, yo, I stayed with it. Why you clowns perpetrate, play with it. Never knew about the next level until Dre did it. I stay committed while you motherfuckers babysit it. You know,
I
it right like
slapped
an
the
overhand,
critic
like
like an
Riddick.
overhand right Riddick. Woo-hoo.
About a million. I be catching bitches by bitches. Yeah, I be catching money. Bitches be catching feelings. So what's the point? What the fuck am I supposed to do? I pop miles and hot hollow tips on each one of you. Yeah,
A heartless bastard, high on plastic. My style is like the
it's like
reaction
a
for two
reaction for
up
2 months
acid.
action.
Never come
Never
down.
come down. Pass it around. You can't handle it. Hang Hollywood niggas by their soul train laminates. Yeah,
Yo,
yeah,
I don't know if people remember Tash. Shout out to Tash from the Alcoholics, but what was that? Jesus G's. It was a remix with Corrupt, Snoop, and Xzbit. How did Xzbit's verse go on there, man? Uh ah He's like, I murder half the population, call me Hannibal, the cannibal. I'm living proof that man came from animal. Believe it or not, you will get shot at point blank range. All the heads who like to get hot. Your ex was killing everything.
yeah,
I
man.
had that Corrupt album, Streets is a Mother. The first time I ever heard Crooked Eye was on, damn, what was the name of that song? It was towards the end of the album. They had Corrupt, Crooked Eye, and Xzbit. And looking back on it, that's a crazy lineup now. But I patterned my style after that Xzbit verse that was on there, man. Well, how is it? Jeez, I'm gonna forget it, man. I'm about to play this real quick. I'm not gonna play it on air, but I want to remember what this was because Xzbit was always on point. He was super consistent, and I'm looking forward to the new album. How long has it been? Like 10 years?
Uh, I don't know. It's been a minute.
It's something like that. It's been a minute, and he
I
got a
thought it
lot of
was like
people on it.
12.
I will say this: the track list seems like it has a lot of tracks on it. I'll pull up the track list in a second, but it's got a lot of features on it, and it's kind of got people like, why is there so many features? I mean, at this stage, are we cool with some of our OGs kind of like loading up the tracks, if you will, with features, or is that looked down upon from people that we hadn't heard from in a minute?
Nah, I don't care as long as the project is good. Like that's the cool thing about these OG artists that's releasing music. Like I don't have no expectations of it other than it expecting it to be dope. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like I think my biggest knock is not the features for artists these days. I think my biggest knock is how many songs be on albums now. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like I would love a strong 10 to 12, other than like trying to get me to listen to a 20 something song album or, 18, 19 track album. I think, a solid 10 to 12. And if it's all fire, I think it does more for you than making this 20 something track album and, you know, out of those, what's going to be throwaways or which one's going to be misses. I just want straight fire, 10 to 12 out tracks of fire, you know.
yeah. I mean, because it's very difficult to go out there and come with straight fire with 22 tracks. You know what I'm saying? And you have such a greater chance for that flow to work on like a 12 album song. Like what would you say? And I'm trying to think while I'm asking this question, and this is for the people out there too. What hip hop album would you say is the best hip hop album you heard that had over 20 tracks on
All eyes on me.
it? I figured that's where people were gonna go. All Eyes on Me or Life After Death, right? Is it more than 20 tracks on Life After Death? Yeah. All right. Well, outside of those double discs,
Get Rich or Die Trying.
that's got over 20 on it.
Uh, Let me see. I think if you count bonus, I think it's probably 18 or
Ah, I
probably
found it.
more than that.
Step Up. Step Up, Corrupt featuring Crooked Eye and Xzbit. And that's when he came in the verse. It's like, when I was unlisted, I came to the table double fisted, sadistic, heavy artillery for all of my enemies. It's like a bunch of shots up in the air screaming obscenity.
Yeah.
Having rapper is like having niggas sport khakis and chucks from here to Italy. It'll be a cold day in hell before you see Exhibit fit. I love that whole bar where he was like sporting khakis and chucks from here to Italy. It'll be. I loved Exhibit's flow, man. Exhibit had a dope flow and the way he was putting words together. They said college dropouts around 20. I don't know,
Yeah, Get
guys.
Rich or Die Trying only had 19.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's very tough to have that many tracks and have a great album. But you're right. You kind of have to do it in a double disc type of format. And I feel like even with All Eyes on Me, it's loaded, right? But I think if it's one disc, it's kind of viewed a little different, and it doesn't make that. A lot of those songs don't make that cut. But I mean, it gives you a lot of room for error. And I feel like in the streaming era, no pun intended, it it ups your success rate, and it did that in the physical era too, because double disc got counted twice, but the
College
quality
Dropout
rate
had
was that.
21. Yeah, I'm
College
looking.
Dropout
College
had
Dropout,
so many.
it had 21. Yeah.
Damn. Well,
Get Rich had
21
19.
tracks, not 21 songs, but still 21 tracks. It's a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if it's fire, but when it's not, that's when you start to look at it. Somebody said the Carter 2. Yeah, absolutely. I
Carter
still
two had
think
that many
Carter 2,
songs. Damn.
yeah, Carter 2 had a lot of songs because it had interludes and stuff too. Um,
Supreme Clientele. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Supreme Clientele. Yeah, and they always seem to have interludes when you do it in that way. Supreme Clientele got that many too. I just put Supreme Clientele on and listen to it. I don't even. Yeah, Supreme Clientele. Uh, yeah, it has 21 tracks, but again, the last two tracks aren't even songs. But whatever, that's cool.
Hell, Late
But if
Registration
that's
had
the case,
21.
yeah,
Had 21.
yeah, yeah.
Like I said, as long as
Well,
it's fire, it's cool. I mean, I think now with the OG artists, unless it's gonna be fire, like I said, keep it at that 10 to 12. I don't care about the features. The features is dope, then it's dope. X, one thing I give the X, I don't think he's ever gonna lose his lyrical ability to spit where it sounds like dated or whatever. I think Exhibit's been one of those people that actually have been able to rap through eras and still like not kind of lose his lyrical flair. You know what I'm saying? So where it doesn't seem like, oh man, he sound old school. Nah, like he's if you could rap, you could rap. And I think he's been able to do that. It's just like where you going to find that out? Yeah, unfortunately, you have to go back some years and revisit his old projects because, like I said, this is his first solo effort in probably like 10 to 12 years.
I
So,
think for Exhibit, the biggest thing and the biggest question mark for me is always going to be production, and that's always the catch 22 once you start working with a Dr. Dre or get Dr. Dre executive produced albums because after you leave that, there's a level of expectations, and there's not a lot of places to go to keep that level, right? I mean, Exhibit before Dre was fire. Like I said,
mhm.
Paparazzi off of 40 Days, 40 Nights. Man, I loved his production, but he wasn't like his production didn't strike you as West Coast. He's one of those West Coast MCs because he's originally from Michigan, I believe. But
I thought it was New Mexico.
is it New Mexico or?
I
Oh,
thought it was
okay.
New Mexico.
One of the two. But he's not one of those West Coast MCs that off top his style hits you where it's like he sounds West Coast per se. He has a lot of East Coast influence. You can hear that. But when he connected with Dre, his level of approach similar to Corrupt, it just meshed in, and what I'm saying, it felt so West Coast. Now Corrupt at least got like the West Coast lingo, even though he kind of got like a Philly East Coast type of flow. But Exhibit, the biggest question mark for his new projects is going to be production. If the production's right, I think he's going to be straight. But I think it was Man versus Machine, one of those albums. I wasn't really feeling the production. But I do think that somebody like a Battle Cat is always somebody to go to, man. Battle Cat's an underrated producer. Yeah, they say he's from Detroit. Who's from New Mexico? He might have lived in New
Yeah, I heard.
Mexico.
I remember
Oh,
it
no,
being a thing
somebody
where
said
people try to
Albuquerque.
claim. Yeah, I seen where like it was some controversy with, like some couple years ago. People try to say, "Oh, he's not even from here; he's from New Mexico." And I know he spoke on that on the Bootleg Kev show, but I don't know where he spent most time at. But I do know there was some time where he was in New Mexico. I just don't know how long. I'm not. I don't even get into bullshit like that. But I
They
think it
say he
was.
was born in Detroit, and he probably grew up in like New Mexico or something.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, yeah. He went to high school in Albuquerque. Yeah. So,
yeah,
but yeah, man. Regardless, who cares? But I think for a
mhm,
lot of the West Coast MCs, like you look at Corrupt, you look at Xzbit, who Corrupt's originally from Philly, and you grow up in Long Beach and all of that, man. I think that just gives you depth, versatility. Look at Pac. You know what I'm saying? Pac was born in New York, and he was able to take it out there and represent heavy like that. So I think production is going to be, you know, going to be very pivotal and very key in what the direction of the production is too. And I only brought up, where Exhibits from is because we've heard him being able to mesh with East Coast style of production and West Coast style of production. And I
facts.
think it's the opportunity for him to bring all those things together. You know what I'm saying? And see where he goes production wise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, man.
I'm always down with the OGs dropping. There's some other releases that's coming.
JID was one of the big ones, and I know we
JID,
briefly talked about that.
he doesn't have a date on it though, but I'm looking forward to it because it's one of how we talk about those albums produced by one producer. From what I'm looking at, as far as the info about this is, it is going to be produced by Metro Boomin.
Yeah.
So we know that he has did some tracks for him beforehand. So I'm looking forward to like what this album is going to come into. I think he's going to deliver, and I think JID is going to be next up. I really do.
I don't
Um,
think that Metro has ever produced a full effort for a lyricist like JID before, and that's why I'm really interested in it because
yeah,
I think that this, and no disrespect to the futures of the world, 21 Savage and all that, I think all that's necessary. But when it comes to making a full body of work and, a themed album that has a beginning, middle, and end, a lyricist can do those things for you in ways that, other artists just aren't able to do.
yeah, and he's going to be. They said the album is going to be called Forever in a Day, but he hasn't released a date on it. I'm pretty sure we don't have to wait too long for that,
I
and I'm
hope
pretty
not.
sure.
I mean, I feel like we've been waiting 2 years for it. I feel like,
Yeah,
but I'm
I'm
just
pretty
kind of
sure. I'm pretty sure it's predicated on when J. Cole's going to drop too. I really think that's like
I hope
he
they're
don't.
not
He
waiting.
doesn't want to drop around the same time as that, being out the same camp. I don't think
No,
because
no.
it'll kind of overshadow his stuff.
Right. I mean, if anything, we would love Cole to drop first, but again, if you got heat, you
Yeah,
got heat. Um,
exactly. So I
does
don't.
Dakota 6 definitively have that June 6th date? Because I kept
Yeah,
seeing that news on like April Fool's Day, and I always get real skeptical on April Fool's Day when it comes to news that's being put out there because I went to Wayne's page and I didn't see anything.
yeah. I think when he did his initial announcement with that like commercial he did, I think they gave the date of June 6th. So what I'm seeing on everything online too is June 6th for the Carter 6th.
Okay.
So my question for people is like, do you guys have expectations for this new Wayne album?
I don't think so. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I'm being real, and I love Wayne. I think that Wayne's his legacy is etched in stone. But I mean, the Carter 5 sounded all over the place. It sounded like it was recorded over periods of time. I think the type of artist and the type of rapper that Wayne is, it's about a rhythm for him. And I feel like that he hasn't been dropping consistently enough to have a rhythm where he could be in that zone that people would like for him to be in. Even when you look at the Carter 1, 2, and 3, there's back to back to back efforts, and I know the Carter 3 kind of skipped a year, but we had Dedication 2 in the middle of that. You know what I mean? And so a rhythm's there. I'm sure Wayne records every day. I know he's once said that. I could see that, but I don't know. The cohesiveness of it all, I think, would be where I would be concerned. As far as like his spot rhyming, he's rapping his ass off on these features and these, spot features and stuff like that. But as far as his material, I just don't know if I could trust that he's in rhythm. But one thing that's good, I think he has going for him, is the fact that he has been doing this hot boy stuff. And I think that there is a level of hunger and nostalgia that comes with getting back on stage with your brothers.
I think this. I think Wayne's gonna deliver on this project too. And the reason being is like, first of all, I didn't like the Funeral album, and I think the Carter Five was stepped on due to stuff with Baby. So I don't think we really got Wayne to be able to sit down and really craft the project and be in on it because, like I said, we got the late stuff of the Funeral album and Carter Five sounding dated due to those probably being joints that should have been released sooner. I think this album, he has like kind of a fire under his ass with the Kendrick conversation, the Super Bowl stuff. I think there's a little bit of inspiration with him being back with Hot Boys and stuff like that. I really
Right.
think Wayne actually has some motivation and something to prove on this album to people who kind of doubted him when the conversation with Kendrick came up. And I think it will fuel the conversation of why Wayne is bringing that thing back to him. And unfortunately, the anticipation like other Carter albums is not here. And I think that's sort of a good thing for Wayne because this is the perfect time for him to remind people that he can actually rap. And I felt like his project with 2 Chainz, he was rapping still. I feel like the
Yeah.
features, he was rapping good. I liked him on both records on the Corday album. I
Yeah.
think he released like a little preview or something that's on YouTube right now, I think. But I have no doubts that Wayne is actually going to deliver a good project on this. My only question is the production more so than anything. It's not his rapping ability.
Ill Magic with the super chat says, is it forever and a day or forever in a day?
Good question. I think it's forever and a day, but I'm not sure. I can go back in there and revisit that to clarify for you guys. But I thought it was
Oh,
forever and a day.
Cushion Orange Juice 2, that's dropping April 18th with
Yes.
Khalifa. Wiz Khalifa is another one that's been super consistent. I'm looking forward to that. I mean, Wiz is always a vibe. So
Yeah.
we
He
don't have a
released a
date
track
on
list.
this. He did?
Yeah, he released a track list for Cushion Orange Juice too.
Okay. What anything stand out to you? I need to
I
pull
have
that
to go
up.
back and bring it up. That's what I'm working on right now.
Okay.
And to confirm, it's called Forever and a Day. For JID's album, Forever
Okay.
and a Day. And yeah, Cushion Orange Juice 2 track list. I want to tell it to the people in real time, but it seemed to be dope from what I seen. The features too.
We don't
Um,
have a date on the DJ Premier and Nas album. Still looking into that. We're seeing how real that is, but it sounds like it's being recorded. Those sessions seem very real. I'm looking forward
okay,
to that as
so
well. You
I'm
got it?
looking at yeah, I got it pulled up. He has features from OT Genesis, Gunna, Ty Dolla Sign, and Jason Martin, Lil Tyler, Michael Prince, La Russell, Mike G Beats, Currency, Matt's B, Juicy J, DJ Quick, Larry
Okay.
June, Chevy Woods, RMR, Don Tolliver, Smoke Dizza.
That's a
And
lot.
it's 23 tracks.
There's a lot of features on it, but it
A lot
sounds
of
like
features.
those are features that make sense and it should be dope.
Yep.
Yo Magic says, is it a JID album or Big Crit album? LOL. Right, right. I was thinking the same thing when I heard it. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm all about the new music coming because that gives us something to be excited about. Roddy Rich
The
dropping
25th,
Navy.
Navy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Roddy
I
Rich
think
was real hot 5 years ago.
yeah,
He's coming with it.
he's a victim of the sophomore jinx.
You can't. We should have a whole show on the sophomore jinx, man. You can't run from it, man. Like it gets worse and worse the more you run from it. And I know that To Pimp a Butterfly is not a sophomore album, quote unquote, but I love the way Kendrick responded to the success of Good Kid, Mad City with the approach of To Pimp a Butterfly. And I think that is the perfect way to respond to a huge album, a groundbreaking album, if you will. I mean, but when you got a big hit single with that, That's
Yeah.
the one thing that Kendrick had going for him. Even though "Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe" was a big single, Kendrick's "Good Kid, Mad City" was heralded for its completeness as a full album. And really, all he had to do was go out there and do that again because that's his lane, and he came with another complete effort. It's different when you have a song like "The Box" to have to live up to, I would imagine.
Well, it's not. I wouldn't even amount that to just a song. That album was a good album. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
but "The
First
Box"
album
is
was
a
a
huge
yeah.
song.
It was a good album though, and I think because the second album wasn't like as good as the first one, that's when people like, oh, he fell off fast. But um, I don't know. I don't have any expectations from Roddy Ricch. I think people are looking at this next album to be make or break, being that the second album wasn't that good. So like a lot of people kind of fell off from him, but we'll see. I wonder how that's coming. I seen that YG is working on new music, but I don't know when a new album's gonna drop. I see he
Didn't he
released a
just
new
drop not
single.
too long ago?
I think he dropped like last year or the year before.
Okay, I like YG.
Yes. Yeah, I see
Yeah, man,
YG.
we need some more excitement in the game. Man, Max said enough. Look, what other albums are coming that are on the way for 2025? I
See,
mean, I think
there's no
Fall Up.
dates.
Yeah,
There's no dates. We got the Nas and DJ Premier. We got Alchemist and Big Sean. Um,
a
we
lot of
still
this
got
is
ASAP.
speculation.
We still got Rocky dropping.
Oh yeah, well that's confirmed. We don't have a date. I do feel like Rocky's album is going to be a big deal. I do
Yeah,
feel like if we're being real about it, if we talk about a build up, J. Cole does have the build up, but we don't really know when the fall off's coming. The fall off could come in 2026 for all we know. But when it comes to ASAP's album, we know that's on the way. They've been kind of giving us updates on its process. That's going to be a big deal. I
yeah,
predict ASAP's album, Don't Be Dumb, is going to be a big deal. And
me too.
I could argue that it is possibly the most anticipated hip hop album of 2025.
I agree.
Yes.
We also know. I think that Wu Tang album is actually dropping this month, if I'm not mistaken. I
I
think
don't
it's
know how all
yeah,
in they are with this. This seems like one of those almost side projects, if you will. You know.
yeah. I see that that's dropping. That's supposed to be dropping this year, and there's somebody else that's supposed to be dropping, and it was in my mind, and it just left that fast.
I feel like it's a
Um,
collaborative effort or something that I'm forgetting. What are
I
we
think
forgetting?
we might get a Thug album this year too.
We should.
Yeah,
And this is what I'm gonna say
I
about
think we're
Thug.
getting a Thug album this year. The
This is what I'm gonna
clips.
say about Thug. I feel like Thug is. I don't know, man. It just seems like maybe he's just staying out of the way as he should. I get that, but it don't feel like he's in music mode. I mean, I don't.
I
I
mean, he's
don't
been
hear.
featured on a few albums. Well,
Yeah,
not a few. I think he was featured on two. I know for a fact he was featured on Lil Baby's last album. I don't think that was him on. I don't think he's on Dirk album, but no.
yeah.
I don't
A
know.
lot of this stuff is when he was locked up, though. I
I feel
think
like
the
Thug.
Lil Baby was the first one that was
Yeah,
a feature where he wasn't locked up. But again, the Lil Baby one, I really wish that him and Future would have said that for themselves because they
yeah. I
cared
feel like
about it.
Thug's gonna drop this year because Thug, he's about to be like headlining a festival. I think
Yeah,
I think he's gonna drop a project this year, whether it's a mixtape or something. I think he's gonna drop this year. I also see Clips is dropping this year. The Clips should be
yeah.
dropping this year as well. I don't see a date on that, but they should be like submit mode. Like I think they're gonna be coming soon. Um,
Well, those are the ones we need. We need
yeah,
Clips. We need Cole.
I mean,
We
Rocky.
need Rocky. We need Nas.
Yeah,
What's the other one? We need JID.
yeah.
Any other ones we're missing, guys? Because really, yeah,
We
we
might
we,
get a
we
2 Chainz solo project this year too.
I'm with that. I'm with that, man. And 2 Chainz has shown with his versatility that it's unpredictable, what direction he could take you. Like this dude could have an album with some songs produced by Alchemist and some songs produced by Honorable C Note or something. You know what I'm saying? Like
Well,
he
the
could do
cool
it
thing
all.
with the cool thing with 2 Chainz, he's not on Def Jam no more. I think he's fully independent, so we might get those looser drops from him and everything. Him kind of doing what he wants to do at the time.
Where's this dropping? We need that to drop. I mean, that's
Yeah,
coming.
this one's used
You
to.
got
Yeah,
dates on that, yeah. And I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I agree. I think the pressure's off Wayne. I anticipate some of these other efforts more than I do Wayne.
right.
And I say that respectfully because I do want Wayne to go out there and make music with a clear head because now he doesn't have the same pressures that he's had on him before, especially with this Carter series.
The
The
game's
pressure's
dropping
always
this year.
been with the Carter series. Oh, the game.
The
That's
game's
right.
dropping this year. Yeah.
The game and Sean and Alchemist. Well,
Mm-hmm.
what was the game dropping? I mean, it was supposed to be him and Kanye. I
It's a
mean,
documentary 3.
that's it. Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah.
What's the expectation that you got on like these sequel albums?
Uh
I
yeah,
think
we were gonna
Wayne's the
talk
best to
about
do
that.
it.
I don't listen, I don't love when people do the sequel albums,
I don't either.
but because I think it puts unnecessary pressure on the effort without us being able to just listen to the album itself. But if this is gonna invigorate you and get you, hungry enough to go out there and make a quality album because that, let's just say, the documentary means so much, I'm with it. I think he delivered on the documentary 2 and 2.5.
Yeah.
So the third ones are fine. It's always the part twos for me because the twos are the ones that are like, it could go either way. You only do a third one if the second one works. So, um, yeah,
Because I think the
I
Carter
think
1
that
through 4 was
the Carter
good.
2 is dope. The Carter 2
I
is
think 1
dope.
through 4 was good.
Yeah. Only Built for Cuban Links 2 is dope. The Blueprint 2 was unnecessary, but I get it. Um, I I'm glad he came with the Blueprint 3. Really, the Blueprint 2 to me, it's a it's an underappreciated J album. It's a very necessary J album. He was rapping his ass off on there, but the I think it got him ready for the Black album in the same way that the Dynasty got him ready for the Blueprint. I think that the name that it carried with it didn't help its cause.
Yeah. Because he did give you the volumes, 1 through 3. You know,
Yeah.
the Blueprint. I think the Blueprint 2 was good for its time, and when you go back and I think the Curse part of that was better than the Gift. But it was a 2 disc album.
Mhm.
Um, I think it was good for the time. Uh, I don't think the documentary 2 was a good album, but it could have lived without it being called the documentary 2.
I agree. Um, I think the fact that he came with 2 and then 2.5, I was like, damn, how much material does he have? Now, again, a lot of features again, and a lot of high price samples, for lack of a better term. A lot of stuff that's worked before that was used. So, it was a dope album, but if we put it in context with other, great albums, even in his catalog, I kind of hold the more original stuff and solo works a little bit higher. Blueprint 2, though, if I'm being objective here, I think the Blueprint 2 is a 4 mic album. I think that it had incredible highs, very low lows, but
Yeah.
the way he's rapping on there, you know, kind of makes up for some of that. The production is all over the place. Um,
Do you like the
again,
Volume series or do you like the Blueprint series more?
damn, I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to defer to the Blueprint series because of the first Blueprint, and I would put the Blueprint over Volume 1, obviously Volume 2 over the Blueprint 2, and then I'm gonna put the Blueprint 3 over Volume 3. I think that the Blueprint 3 kind of saves it in that conversation. Um, not just the Blueprint 3, but the fact that the first Blueprint was what it was. You know what I'm saying? It saves it. I think that Volume 1 is underappreciated,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, Volume 2 kind of made Volume 1 even more underappreciated, I think, too. But Volume 3, to me, if we're going with the 6 albums, Volume 3 is the weakest of all 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of with the Blueprint series too
Yeah.
over Volume 1. Even though Volume 2 is shining, I think some of those volumes is like one is like kind of underrated in his own right. But yeah, man, I'm with you on that. You know, who else gave us something that was a good sequel? I think Dirty Sprite 2 by Future was
It was.
excellent.
Yeah.
It
Because
was an
that's
excellent
the
sequel.
memorable one.
You get the hits from him, you know.
Dirty Sprite 2, in my personal opinion, um, that's Future's best project, in my personal opinion. Now
Yeah,
I love the Future album, the self-titled album, but if I'm being objective with the hits and stuff, Dirty Sprite 2 is the one.
yeah.
All right. What
DST.
did we miss?
Nah, not anything, man. I mean, we can't talk. That's a conversation. Sophomore jinx is a whole nother conversation.
I think we should
Yeah,
save that for next show. I think we do need to
yeah.
highlight some of the best sophomore albums and some of the ones that missed the mark, but you can't be afraid of it. Listen, I'll say this, and I don't say this disparagingly. I think The Dogfather is the biggest disappointing. It's the most disappointing hip hop album of all time. It's a sophomore album. It is the sophomore jinx. It comes after Doggy Style, which is one of the greatest hip hop albums ever made, top 5 in my opinion. But Snoop has had an incredible career, even surviving the sophomore jinx and possibly the biggest sophomore jinx ever. So don't be afraid of it. You can survive it. Snoop survived it. It is what it is. Matt Max with the super chat says Snoopy track on volume 3. Mike, you wildin'. I love Snoopy track, but that's just one song. But yeah, Snoop was able to survive the sophomore jinx, probably the ultimate sophomore jinx. So don't be afraid of the sophomore album, man.
I mean,
It's
what
gotta happen.
did the Migos give us 3 series? They gave us Culture 3. Yeah, they had a series of them, Culture 1 through 3, I think.
I mean, Culture One's the one, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Yeah. They got. Oh, that's funny you say that, man, because I was just listening to No Labels too, and I was kind of doing like a throwback Migos listen the other day, man. The Culture series, it got weaker and weaker. But
I
again,
agree.
I think that's group dynamics. I think that had a lot to do with it, and you could hear the group drifting further and further apart. By by Culture 3, it sounded like Quavo and Takeoff featuring Offset on many of those songs.
Yeah.
Like, why not? It sounds like, Offset just kind of came in. Even the one with NBA YoungBoy, where Offset and NBA YoungBoy going back
I
and
like
forth.
that joint. That was like one of the
Oh,
better dudes off that record. Yeah,
it is. I Need It was hard.
yeah.
I think
That
that
that feature
the
off 50.
pandemic kind of messed up songs like that, and I think it messed up that D4L song with Drake, Future, and Thug. I think if people would have been outside, those songs would have went different. So,
Yeah.
all right, man. Hit like and subscribe, everybody. We appreciate y'all checking in, man. Yeah, next week we're gonna talk sophomores, and I think we got some other topics too. But hopefully,
Yeah.
we get some release dates on some of these anticipated albums. But Kim is the greatest female MC of all time. It is what it is.
I mean, Could be some debates, but yeah, I'm with you. I feel like Kim goes up there too.
Yeah. If you go by the criteria, and if we're just being honest about the criteria, that's Kim. It is what it
Yeah,
is.
I hate
All
lists.
right. Have a wonderful week, y'all. Appreciate you.
Appreciate y'all.
All right. Hit like and subscribe, man.
No.
A2HH. Sir.